As a medicinal vessel, my veins flow with blood that can neutralize all poisons. In my past life, I fell for the physician Gu Qingyu who came to Tianshan to gather herbs, and I eloped down the mountain with him without a second thought. He treated me with utmost tenderness, saying my blood was a gift from the heavens that shouldn't be caged, sweet-talking me into believing he was my destined one. But when his childhood sweetheart, Yu Wenting, was struck by a rare poison, he tied me to an alchemy furnace and drove 99 silver needles into every bone of my body engulfed in flames. He collected my flowing blood while soothing his beloved Sia. You were born to be a remedy, a tonic to prolong my Tinger's life. This is your supreme honor. Be good, don't cry out, or the potency will be lost. I was refined alive for 7 days and 7 nights, forced to watch as my blood drained away, coalescing into pill after pill. He fed those pills to his Tinger, and they cured her illness on their wedding day. They even had the audacity to fashion a teacup from my remaining ashes. They drank from it daily, parading their so-called eternal love for all to see. Given a second chance at life, I found myself back on the very day we were to elope. Gu Qingyu waited for me at the foot of the mountain, but I turned and walked into the cavern of 10,000 poisons. I offered myself to the monster, corrupted by miasma and rumored to devour human flesh and blood. 1. The agony of flame searing. My skin felt branded into my very soul. 99 silver needles pierced my entire body, channeling my blood toward the furnace's core. Gu Qingyu stood outside the furnace, holding a long jade ladle, gently stirring my gradually melting flesh within the cauldron. Yu Wenting leaned against him, her face pale and pitiful. Qingyu, her screams are so agonizing. I'm scared. Gu Qingyu held her tighter, his voice softer and more tender than I had ever heard. Don't be afraid, Tinger, this is the honor of being a medicinal vessel. Hush, close your eyes, it will be over soon. He looked at me again, his brow slightly furrowed. Sia, stop crying out, it will affect the potency of the medicine. My throat was already too hoarse to scream, reduced to nothing but a guttural, mournful rasp. I looked at him, the man who once combed my hair and painted my brows, who said my existence was a heavenly gift, not a cage, who promised to show me all the splendors the mortal world had to offer. So, the blossoms he wanted to show me were merely the ornament of their love, blooming from the ashes of my demise. In my final moment of fading consciousness, I watched as he refined my flesh and blood into a golden elixir, then tenderly fed it into Yu Wenting's mouth. My eyes snapped open, the foot I had lifted to descend the mountain path froze mid-air, and I drew it back. I turned and ran without hesitation toward the forbidden land of the rear mountain, the 10,000 poisons cavern. Inside the 10,000 poisons cavern, miasma hung thick in the air, and venomous creatures crawled everywhere. It was the dwelling of Wen Huaizhou, the world's foremost sword cultivator, who had been corrupted by the poisonous vapors and was rumored to devour human flesh and blood. He was afflicted with a rare and strange poison, and only the potent toxins within the 10,000 poisons cavern could suppress it, and so, he could not take a single step beyond the 10,000 poisons cave. In my past life, I was refined into an elixir, with nowhere for my soul to go. It could only cling to my own ashes. I watched with my own eyes as Gu Qingyu and Yu Wenting had my ashes fired into teacups. Day after day, they drank from them, their love and intimacy on full display, that is, until when Huaizhou stormed the 10,000 poisons cave. With one sword stroke, he beheaded Gu Qingyu. With another, he pierced Yu Wenting through the heart. Cradling the small teacup, he said, Ayue, I'm taking you home. When Huaizhou found a place of serene beauty and personally erected a tombstone for me. After completing this, deprived of the suppressing miasma of the 10,000 toxins cave, the strange poison within him erupted completely, and so he sat before my grave, bleeding from all 7 orifices, his life force ebbing away bit by bit. A single, scalding tear of blood fell from the corner of his eye before death, striking the tombstone and searing my very soul. Only then did I realize, too late, that while I was recklessly devoted to another man, someone else had loved me profoundly. From the shadows, little one, from within the cave came the familiar voice of Wen Huaizhou. A lump formed in my throat as all the grievances and regrets from this life and the last surged into my heart, blurring my vision in an instant. Everyone says that Wen Huaizhou, who dwells in the 10,000 poison cave, has long been corroded by the toxic miasma, becoming neither man nor ghost, but I alone know that is not true. The Tianshan mountains were desolate and cold. With only him and me, I would occasionally prepare some food and come to this 10,000 poisons cave to chat with him and pass the time. Before my master passed away, he warned me that the human heart is treacherous and that I must never descend the mountain. But Gu Qingyu promised me a lifetime of devotion to just one person, and so I naively believed he was my destined soulmate. In my past life, before deciding to leave the mountain, I made a special trip to bid farewell to Wen Huaizhou. At that moment, He sat on the mossy stone at the cave's entrance, polishing the sword that never left his side. After hearing me out, he said nothing, only silently pressing a bone whistle into my hand. If you need me, sound it. He said he would come, without fail, with a single whistle blast. He gathered my remains and avenged my deepest grudge. In the end, he even gave his own life. In my past life, I never understood what lay hidden in his obscure gaze when he handed me the bone whistle. Only now do I finally understand. It was a profound, unspoken affection, fiercely suppressed, too. When Huizhou had his back to me, "Cat got your tongue," he said. "Has some village boy stolen your wits along with your words?" There was a tinge of something in his tone I'd never heard before, something that sounded almost like jealousy. When I still didn't respond, he finally turned around. As he took in my red-rimmed eyes, a murderous aura instantly radiated from his entire being. "Did Guqingyu hurt you?" I could hold back no longer and threw myself into his arms. I tightened my arms around him, burying my face in his solid chest, and murmured, "When Huizhou, I'm not leaving. I can't bear to be apart from you." When Huizhou's body went rigid all at once, his breath catching for a moment, only the flush that crept up to the tips of his ears betrayed his inner turmoil. He shoved me away abruptly, his eyes refusing to meet mine, and made to stride out of the cave with his sword in hand. I knew that bastard Gu was no good. "Just you wait, I'm going to finish him off." "Are you insane?" I stood in his way. "If you leave the 10,000 Poisons cave, you'll die." In our past life, the only reason he could break free from the shackles of the 10,000 Poisons cave was because I was dead, with nothing left to lose. He sought revenge for me with a heart set on death. In this life, I will never let him walk down that same tragic path again. I looked at him and said, "When Huizhou, my blood can neutralize 100 poisons. So it can naturally suppress the poison within you. Let me be your antidote, please. This time, it's my turn to save him." When Huizhou gazed at me deeply, his eyes inscrutable, "Xia, do you have any idea what you're saying?" I couldn't be bothered to argue with him any longer. I simply drew the dagger from my waist and aimed it at my wrist, ready to slash, but he seized my wrist in an iron grip, his strength terrifying. "Nonsense," he growled, his eyes filled with undisguised fear and anguish. "If harming you is the price to cure my poison, I'd rather rot in this den of venom for the rest of my life." Some wish to drain me of my blood, while others treasure me as if I were a precious jewel, unwilling to let a single harm befall me. My eyes grew hot again, and I asked him with a choked voice, "Then how can I cure your poison?" When Huizhou fell silent for a long while, his gaze drifted from my face, down to my lips, and finally settled on my hand, which was clutching his sleeve tightly. "Well," his Adam's apple bobbed, "there is another way." He paused, saying no more. I grew frantic. "What way? Tell me." He averted his gaze, his voice low and husky. "Carnal union." He explained that through the union of yin and yang, and the merging of our lifeblood, my medicinal essence could integrate more directly into his meridians. It wouldn't harm my body, and the effect might even be stronger. I stood frozen in place, my cheeks burning with a sudden, fierce heat, seeing my lack of response. When Huizhou turned away, "Forget it," he said, "pretend I never spoke. The 10,000 Poisons cave isn't so bad, really." But I grabbed his sleeve, my head bowed so low in embarrassment it nearly touched the ground. My voice was as faint as a mosquito's hum. I'm willing." A smile played at the corner of Wen Huizhou's lips. He pulled me closer, forcing me to look up at him. "Are you sure about this? If you save me, then I'm yours. We'll be bound together for life. Don't even think about shaking me off." I couldn't bring myself to meet his burning gaze, so I just nodded frantically. The next moment, I felt weightless as when Huizhou swept me up into his arms. I gasped in surprise and instinctively wrapped my arms around his neck. He strode deeper into the room, chuckling low in my ear. "No time to waste, lest my little alchemist changes her mind." When Huizhou was insatiable, as if pouring out all the pent-up emotions from these years, taking me again and again. It wasn't until noon the next day that I finally rose, supporting my sore and weary waist. He was still asleep. Perhaps the strange poison in his body had eased, for his complexion was much rosier than usual, and the deep furrow between his brows had smoothed away. I slipped quietly out of bed, intending to return to my own courtyard to change into fresh clothes. To my surprise, I saw Guqingyu and you waiting right at the courtyard gate. 3. Guqingyu saw me and hurried over to meet me. "Xia, I waited for you all day yesterday at the foot of the mountain. Why didn't you come?" Just as his hand was about to touch my arm, I recoiled in disgust, sidestepping and leaving him grasping at air. Guqingyu's hand froze mid-air, a wounded look on his face. "Xia, what's wrong with you?" Seeing him look at me with such deep affection, if I hadn't already been tortured to death by him once, I might have drowned in his false tenderness all over again. You went behind him, chose that moment to cough twice, then leaned weakly against Guqingyu as if she had no bones in her body. She spoke in a faint, breathless voice. "Sister Xia, Brother Qingyu stayed up all night waiting for you yesterday. At the first light of dawn, he was afraid something had happened to you and rushed up the mountain to find you. Watching their little act, I felt a wave of nausea churning in my gut. I'm not going down the mountain, you all go on ahead. Gu Qingyu looked taken aback. Why? We agreed you'd come down the mountain with me. Are you still upset about what happened last time? A few days prior, Gu Qingyu had also taken you Wenting up the mountain to gather herbs. Somehow, you Wenting managed to knock over the candlestick, and the ensuing flames quickly engulfed my pharmacy, which was stocked full of rare medicinal herbs. The blaze roared towards the sky, trapping both her and me inside. Gu Qingyu rushed in and spotted me immediately, but upon hearing you Wenting's cries, he instantly changed course. He left me with only these words, hold on, Sia, Tinger is frail, I must save her first. The flames were licking at the hem of my skirt. I barely managed to scramble out through the window, utterly disheveled. When I looked up, I saw Gu Qingyu had already rescued Yu Wenting. He was holding her tightly, whispering words of comfort. After the fire was extinguished, the rare herbs and plants my family had collected over generations were reduced to nothing but ashes on the ground. But Gu Qingyu said, we're leaving the mountain anyway. These things don't matter. In my past life, I was a complete fool, thinking Yu Wenting's actions were mere accidents. Looking back now, it's clear she had malicious intentions towards me all along. Gu Qingyu's voice pulled me from my memories. Tinger is like a sister to me. If anything happened to her, I could never forgive myself. Sia, you're so understanding, you won't blame me for this, right? I couldn't be bothered with their pretenses any longer. I said I'm not leaving. Are you deaf? Gu Qingyu grew frantic. Sia, are you truly content to be trapped on this celestial mountain for the rest of your life? It's desolate and lonely here. What is there to hold you? Moreover, in the 10,000 poison cavern of the rear mountain dwells Wen Huaizhou, a monster who feasts on human flesh and blood. How could I possibly rest easy, leaving you here alone? Hearing the word monster pass his lips, the warmth in my eyes instantly froze over. The so-called monster he speaks of as the only person in this world who has ever treated me with genuine sincerity. I fixed my gaze on him. Gu Qingyu, tell me truthfully, do you truly wish to spend the rest of your life with me, or do you have some other motive in mind? Gu Qingyu's eyes flickered for a moment, yet he flatly denied it. What nonsense are you talking? My feelings for you are as clear as day and as firm as the earth. Upon hearing this, Yu Wenting glared at me viciously, then suddenly broke into a violent coughing fit, even bringing up a trace of blood. As expected, Gu Qingyu was immediately drawn to her, his face full of anxiety and pity, completely forgetting about me. Leaning in his arms, Yu Wenting gave me a weak smile. Sister is so fortunate to have brother Qingyu care for you so much, not like me, born frail, I can only be a burden to him, a dead weight. Gu Qingyu hurried to comfort her, his eyes filled with a tenderness and concern I had never received. I couldn't bear to watch their affected display any longer and turned to go back inside. But then, Gu Qingyu produced a small white jade porcelain bottle from his robes and held it out to me. Tinger isn't feeling well, so I'll take her down the mountain first. If you don't wish to leave, stay a few more days. I'll come back for you in a couple of days. His demeanor softened, his voice thick with concern. But I'm still worried about you. This is a special incense I made to ward off my asthma and repel poisonous insects and snakes. Keep it with you, just in case. My eyes were fixed on the porcelain vial in his hand. In my past life, he had given me one just like this. I believed it. I placed it by my pillow each day and fell asleep each night breathing in its scent. Little did I know, this was no incense to ward off my asthma, but rather a lure for the soul. That fragrance would slowly erode my mind, leaving my entire body weak and my bones aching. By the time he tied me to the alchemy furnace, I didn't have the strength left to put up even the slightest resistance. Seeing that I wouldn't take it, Gu Qingyu shoved it into my hand anyway. Take it, be good. The moment he turned and walked away, I flung my arm out without hesitation, hurling the white jade porcelain bottle hard to the side. To prevent Gu Qingyu from showing up at my door again, I simply packed some daily necessities and moved into the 10,000 Poisons cave. Little did I know, I had just escaped the wolf's den only to fall into the tiger's lair. Ever since when Huaizhou had his first taste, he became insatiable. He's been glowing with vitality every day, looking better and more energetic by the hour. Meanwhile, poor me has to crawl out of bed each morning with legs trembling. That day, while still lost in dreams, I felt a flurry of warm kisses raining down on me. A jolt of alarm shot through me. Realizing something was off, I rolled off the bed with a frantic lurch just before he could pin me down. My old hen back in the yard said she's laying an egg today. I'd better go check on her. I made up a flimsy excuse, grabbed my clothes, and threw them on. When Huaizhou propped himself up on his elbow, watching me from the bedside, his dark eyes held undisguised disappointment. All right, he said, come back early. I mumbled an agreement and fled in a panic. Just as I reached the gate of my small courtyard, a figure darted out from nowhere and seized my wrist. Sia, where have you been these past few days? I've been looking for you for ages. Gu Qingyu had dark circles under his eyes and a frantic expression. He grabbed my arm, urging, let's get down the mountain now. We can't waste any more time. My heart skipped a beat as I suddenly remembered. This very day in my past life was when Yu Wenting's condition took a turn for the worse. I eyed him warily, forcefully shook off his hand, and put 3 paces of distance between us. Gu Qingyu gritted his teeth, the gentle facade on his face beginning to crack. His eyes were filled with anguish, yet his voice remained tender. Sia, Tinger, she's been poisoned. With bloodshot eyes, he pleaded, trembling, you're the only one who can save her. I know drawing your blood will harm you, but Tinger, she won't last much longer. He took a step forward, his gaze burning into me as he vowed, word by deliberate word, don't you love me? If you'll just save her, I swear, the moment she's fully recovered, I'll have you carried into my home in a grand wedding procession. The exact same words as in my past life. In my past life, I was deceived by this very promise, willingly offering a bowl of my blood even though Yu Wenting's illness was already cured. She kept feigning weakness and misery in front of him, coaxing him to draw blood from me again and again, until I was utterly drained and exhausted. Watching his display of heartfelt sincerity, I found it utterly ridiculous and let out a cold, mocking laugh. What does that have to do with me, Gu Qingyu? From the very beginning, you only approached me for my blood, didn't you? You and Yu Wenting are a perfect match, yet you had the audacity to feign deep affection for me. You want me to save her. In your dreams, Gu Qingyu's mask of hypocrisy shattered piece by piece, revealing the monstrous truth beneath. Yu, I had intended to be gentle with you. He sneered with a sinister grin, but since it's come to this, don't blame me for what happens next. Before the words had fully left his mouth, he suddenly flung a handful of white powder toward me. My heart seized with terror. I held my breath and stumbled backward in haste, but a faint trace still managed to reach my nostrils. The world spun violently. I felt all my strength drain from my body, my vision went black, and I plunged completely into darkness. When I opened my eyes again, the first thing I saw was that familiar alchemical furnace, the very one that had burned me for 7 days and 7 nights. How could this be? Even after being reborn into a new life, I've still ended up here. A boundless despair instantly swallowed me whole. Creak, the door to the dark room swung open, and Gu Qingyu entered, holding a row of silver needles. He walked up to me, picked up the longest one, and gestured with it over my heart. Sia, don't blame me, I'll be very careful, I won't let it hurt too much. The searing pain of the cold needle tip piercing deep into my flesh made my vision swim with black spots. The vision of my past life, being consumed by flames. My blood drained drop by drop, overlapped with the present moment, blurring the line between now and then. Just as Gu Qingyu picked up a second silver needle, poised to drive it in again, boom, the thick wall of the secret chamber was violently shattered by a tremendous force. Amidst the flying debris and dust, a figure shrouded in a chilling, baleful aura appeared like a ghost. When Huaizhou's gaze swept across the room, when he saw me, bound to the alchemy furnace, face deathly pale, blood dripping from my wrist, his crimson pupils abruptly contracted. The aura around him churned with savage fury, threatening to devour the entire, cramped secret chamber. 5. The sword light cleaved through the air, so fast it left only a blur. A blossom of blood suddenly bloomed on Gu Qingyu's wrist, which held the silver needle, and the long needle clattered to the ground. He didn't even have time to see what happened before a searing pain seized him, and he stumbled backward with a cry. When Huaizhou didn't even glance his way, with a flick of his sword, he effortlessly severed the chains binding me. The cold iron links shattered one by one. My legs gave way, and I fell into a firm, trembling embrace when Huaizhou scooped me up into his arms, his movements gentle and careful. Only then did Gu Qingyu clearly see who had arrived, utterly horrified, even forgetting the pain in his wrist. When Huaizhou, how did you get out? Aren't you afraid of death? Upon seeing the intimate posture between Wen Huaizhou and me, the possessiveness in his eyes almost solidified into something tangible. Let go of Sia, she's mine. When Huaizhou lowered his gaze, looking at him as if he were a noisy, insignificant insect. Yours. His voice was soft, yet laced with a murderous intent, cold as forged ice. Another flash of cold steel, and Gu Qingyu's other tendon was severed in an instant. His hands hung limp, agony twisted his features, and genuine terror finally flooded his eyes. Gu Qingyu shouted at me through gritted teeth, Sia, come here quickly, he'll kill you, he's a monster. I watched his wretched state coldly. Go over, so you can drain me of my blood. Gu Qingyu, furious and humiliated, snapped, so the reason you won't come down the mountain with me is because you're involved with him. What makes you think Wen Huaizhou is any better? He's afflicted with a strange poison, Isn't he getting close to you for your blood too? Seeing my indifference, he forced that sickeningly tender look back onto his face, his voice dripping with a nauseating sweetness. Sia, I only need a little. Just a drop of blood, once Tinger as well, I'll marry you. Right away, I'll take you to settle in Jiangnan, just like you've always wanted. We'll watch the flowers bloom through all the seasons. Alright, even now. He still dares to try and bewitch me. I nestled deeper into Wen Huizhou's warm embrace. Ignore him, I said. Let's just go. But when Huizhou's sword was already drawn, wait until I kill him, he said. Gu Qingyu's face turned deathly pale. He scrambled and stumbled toward the gaping hole in the blasted wall, vanishing from sight in the blink of an eye. When Huizhou held me in his arms and made no move to give chase, I knew he didn't want to leave me here alone. Once I was sure Gu Qingyu had fled far enough, I quickly broke free from his embrace. Anxiously, I took his hand and began checking him over from head to toe. Are you alright? We must hurry back to the 10,000 Poisons cave. What if your poison flares up? When Huizhou pulled me back into his embrace, his arms wrapping around me with a force that felt as if he wanted to meld me into his very bones and blood, he buried his face in the crook of my neck, his voice hoarse and trembling with the aftershocks of a narrow escape. I'm fine. I've been fine for a while now. I just thought, living with you in the Valley of 10,000 Poisons wasn't so bad, so I never mentioned it. But you, he tightened his arms around me, his voice thick with dread, if I had arrived just a moment later. I don't even want to think about what would have happened. This man, who fears nothing, not even his own death, is trembling now. For me, a heart suspended for 2 lifetimes finally settled back into place at this moment. I patted his back gently, soothing him, and in doing so, soothing myself. Back at the 10,000 Poisons cave, when Huizhou fetched clean water without a word, dampened a cotton cloth, and began carefully wiping away the bloodstain from the silver needle's puncture over my heart. A gloom so thick it seemed impenetrable was etched between his brows. Does it hurt? He finally asked, his voice gravelly and strained. I shook my head, took his cool hand, and pressed it against my cheek. It doesn't hurt anymore. I had been far too lenient when I severed Gu Qingyu's tendons. I leaned in and kissed the corner of his tense lips. A flicker passed through his gaze, the harshness in his eyes softening into tenderness. I changed the subject. How did you find me? When Huizhou released me, took my hand, and pointed to the red thread he had tied around my wrist at some point. The red cord was intricately woven, with a small, warm jade bead hanging from it. He raised his own wrist, where an identical one was tied. Twin beads, each could sense the presence of the other. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched the corner of his mouth, yet his gaze was unnervingly serious. I'm afraid you'll leave me one day, that you'll run away this way. No matter where you are, I'll be able to find you. 6. Gu Qingyu staggered back into the courtyard, reeking of blood and earth. Utterly disheveled, the excruciating pain in his wrist, sharp enough to feel like it was shattering, made his vision swim with black spots. Seeing him, Yu Wenting hurried out to meet him, her face etched with anxiety. She grabbed Gu Qingyu's arm and demanded without preamble, "Where is Du Xia's blood? Did you get it?" Gu Qingyu's eyes darkened, and his brow furrowed tightly. She showed not a shred of concern for the state I was in. Seeing he didn't respond, Yu Wenting gave him a shake, which jostled Gu Qingyu's injury. Gu Qingyu sucked in a sharp breath. Only then did she notice his limp, hanging hands and the shocking bloodstains on them. The urgency on Yu Wenting's face instantly turned to horror, her voice rising to a sharp pitch. "Qingyu, your hand, what happened to your hand?" Gu Qingyu's face was deathly pale, his voice thick with resentment. "When Huizhou, he severed the tendons in my hand and took Du Xia away." When Huizhou, Yu Wenting's voice shot up an octave. How could Du Xia have left with him? What about me? What about my poison? Gu Qingyu couldn't make sense of it either. Du Xia was as innocent as a blank sheet of paper. In the past, a few sweet words from him were enough for her to give him her whole heart, but now, it was as if she were a different person. All his usual tricks had lost their power. Seeing him fall silent, Yu Wenting's eyes reddened, and tears began to roll down her cheeks. Sobbing, she fumbled frantically for the medicinal salve. As she bandaged Gu Qingyu's wound, her voice choked with tears. "Brother Qingyu, it's all my fault. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have gotten hurt like this. I want to take good care of you, Tinger really does, but I'm poisoned now. I can barely take care of myself. My heart is willing, but my strength is failing." She wiped her tears, her eyes glinting with venom. It must be when Huizhou using some sorcery to bewitch Sister Xia. She's always been so innocent, she wouldn't know the first thing about such wicked, underhanded tricks. Lifting her tear-filled eyes, she gazed pitifully at Gu Qingyu. "Brother Qingyu, I'm sure Sister Du Xia still has feelings for you. She's the only one who can save me now. Could you please go and talk to her again?" Her words perfectly suit the frustration and doubt churning in Gu Qingyu's heart. Yes, that must be it. How could Du Xia, who loved him so deeply, Just stop loving him like that. The memory of the icy look Du Xie gave him at the end stirred up another wave of irritation in his heart. She's just a naive little girl, raised in the remote mountains and ignorant of the ways of the world. She's merely been blinded for the moment. Once she's suffered enough by that monster when Huizhou's side, she'll naturally come running back to him in tears, begging. When that time came, he would make sure she knew exactly who her one true pillar of support was. In the first few days after returning to the courtyard, Yu Wenting did indeed devote herself wholeheartedly to caring for Gu Qingyu, but this facade of shared hardship couldn't even last 10 days. Yu Wenting's poison began to flare up uncontrollably. She was in terrible pain herself, yet still had to care for Gu Qingyu. The petulance and impatience in her nature could no longer be contained. Holding the medicine bowl, Yu Wenting's brow furrowed deeper and deeper, her tone shifting from initial concern to an impatient urge. Brother Qingyu, you have to think of something. You have to go find Du Xie. If we drag this out any longer, I'm really going to die. Gu Qingyu sat by the window, his eyes vacant as he stared at his own trembling hands. It wasn't that he hadn't tried to find her, but the terrain of the 10,000 poison abyss was treacherous, shrouded in miasma. He couldn't even get past the outer perimeter. Time and again, I've returned empty-handed, only to end up in a sorry state seeing him remain silent for so long. Yu Wenting's voice grew shrill. Say something. Are you just going to stand there and watch me die? She slammed the medicine bowl down hard on the table, splashing the liquid and staining the surface. Didn't you say I was your life? Now that I'm dying, you can't even bring back a single drop of blood. Gu Qingyu was, after all, once a master physician of great renown, yet now, his once rock-steady hands trembled uncontrollably. He couldn't even hold a needle steady, let alone perform precise acupuncture. Already vexed by this very fact, hearing Yu Wenting's words now filled his eyes with a fierce, hostile glare. He cut her off impatiently. Enough. Yu Wenting was stunned by his shout. You're yelling at me. I must have been blind to fall for a useless man like you. She turned and ran out. For the first time, a wave of intense disgust welled up in Gu Qingyu's heart. If it weren't for Yu Wenting, he would never have sunk to such a sorry state. 7. Yu Wenting ran off in a huff that day and, true to her word, didn't come back for several days. Gu Qingyu tried to tough it out at first, but without anyone to look after him, even getting a sip of hot water became a struggle. A foul, sour smell soon filled the room, mingling with the odor of the medicinal salve on his wounds, making it utterly nauseating. That night, a violent storm raged outside the window, with thunder crashing and lightning flashing. Gu Qingyu, fearing something might have happened to Yu Wenting, rushed out in a panic to search for her. Yet, after scouring all the places she might have gone, there was still no sign of her. Just as he was on the verge of giving up, he spotted Yu Wenting's figure outside an unfamiliar mansion. She was holding an oil paper umbrella, smiling radiantly as she spoke to the man beside her. He recognized the man. It was Dr. Xingxian, who was always at odds with him and constantly trying to one-up him. Watching the two of them walk hand in hand into the courtyard, Gu Qingyu felt a surge of rage. A burning sense of betrayal made his entire body tremble. He crept silently to the base of the wall and pressed close to a half-open window. The lamplight from inside the room cast shifting shadows on the papered window. Immediately, the faint rustle of fabric could be heard from within, mingled with Yu Wenting's coy, breathless protests and soft gasps. Gu Qingyu's mind exploded, his reason shattered. He violently shoved open the half-closed door, his eyes blazing red as he stared at the intimate pair inside. What are you doing? Yu Wenting was startled by his wretched appearance, and her face immediately twisted into an expression of undisguised disgust and impatience. How did you find this place? You're like a bad penny that keeps turning up. Gu Qingyu was trembling with rage, pointing a finger at her, but he couldn't even form a complete sentence. You, all of you. Yu Wenting rolled her eyes and shrank closer to Xingxian. What's wrong with us, Gu Qingyu? I only put up with your pathetic act because I thought you could save me. Turns out you really are worthless. Now your hands are useless. You're a broken man. Did you really think I'd stay with such a pathetic creature? Brother Xingxian said he has a way to save me, so stop being an eyesore and get the hell out of here. Gu Qingyu's eyes bulged with rage. With a guttural roar, he tried to lunge forward, but now, he was nothing but a helpless cripple, too weak to even wring a chicken's neck. With a single contemptuous gesture, Xingxian pinned him firmly to the ground. He dragged Gu Qingyu outside and flung him harshly into the icy mud outside. The rain poured down in torrents, and thunder rumbled. Leaning against the doorframe from his position of superiority, Xingxian wore an undisguised sneer. Gu Qingyu, take a good look at yourself now. Don't you look just like a stray dog? He paused, his voice dripping with the smugness of a victor. Get lost. Tinger belongs to me now. Icy rain lashed against Gu Qingyu's face, mixing with mud and leaving him utterly disheveled. A throbbing pain shot from the ruined tendons in his wrist, yet it was nothing compared to the agony tearing his heart apart for Yu Wenting. He exhausted every scheme, even going so far as to destroy Du Xia, the woman whose heart and eyes held only him, yet in the end, he himself became nothing more than a used-up piece of trash, discarded without a second thought. How utterly ridiculous. Through the curtain of rain, her face, Du Xia's face, appeared before his dazed eyes once more. It wasn't that cold, resolute face, but the girl from the early days on Tianshan Mountain, the one who would blush at his every word, who would foolishly offer up all her most treasured possessions to him. Ha, ha ha. Gu Qingyu lay sprawled in the muddy water, a broken, rasping laugh escaping his throat. As he laughed, his tears began to fall, mingling with the rain. Remorse, like a venom, instantly seeped into his very bones and blood. 8. When Huaizhou's poison had been completely cured, yet for some reason, he stubbornly lingered in the 10,000 Poisons Cave, refusing to leave. He had the gall to call it sentimental, claiming, "This is where we pledged our love, it holds special meaning." Then one day, as I was crouched at the cave entrance feeding a passing wild rabbit, he drifted up silently behind me. The poor creature, happily munching away, was startled and vanished in the blink of an eye. "That's mine, it's eating," when Huaizhou said, his tone sharp. I was baffled. "How are the wild berries on this mountain suddenly yours?" He pulled me into his arms without a hint of shame, resting his chin on my shoulder. "What you pick is mine. Feeding it means you're using my things to curry favor with another creature." I was rendered speechless by his bizarre logic. It took me a moment to realize. This man was jealous of a wild rabbit. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, giving the hand he had wrapped around my waist a gentle squeeze. All right, it's all yours. And I suppose that means I'm yours too. Is that good enough for you? Only then did he seem satisfied, planting a kiss on my cheek. This was the very picture of tranquil happiness. I thought that after what happened last time, having both his hands broken, Gu Qingyu would surely not dare to come looking for me again. To my surprise, since he couldn't enter the 10,000 Poisons Cave, he simply stood guard outside it for days and nights on end. I had no intention of paying him any mind, but I couldn't block out his daily calls for me outside, which grew utterly grating when Huaizhou raised his sword and declared, "I'll go kill him." I stopped him. "Enough," I said. "I'll go see what he wants." Gu Qingyu's hair was disheveled, his face gaunt and haggard. If not for the faintly familiar contours of his face, I would scarcely have recognized him as the once radiant and captivating man who had so misguidedly captured my heart. When he saw me, a sudden glimmer of light sparked in his clouded eyes. "Xia!" Gu Qingyu shouted my name, scrambling and stumbling as he lunged toward me. When Huaizhou instantly rose to his feet, shielding me, his entire demeanor turning icy cold. Gu Qingyu shuddered, yet he still refused to leave. His knees buckled, and he dropped straight down, kneeling directly in my direction. "Xia, I was wrong. I know I was wrong." He wept bitterly, tears and snot streaming down his face. "I was used by Yu Wenting. I lost my head for a moment. I regret it, but I truly love you. Please, forgive me. Won't you?" He looked up, appearing utterly wretched and pathetic. I walked past. When Huaizhou stopped in front of Gu Qingyu and looked down at him. "Regret?" I let out a soft, utterly mirthless laugh. "Is it regret for what you did to me, or regret for the miserable state you've ended up in?" Gu Qingyu, stop pretending, search your heart and ask yourself this. If you had succeeded back then, if you had used my blood to save Yu Wenting, would you have felt any remorse? No, you wouldn't have. Your regret has never been about the wrong you committed, never about hurting me or trampling on my feelings. You only regret that you lost, that you've been reduced to a worthless failure. My words left him speechless. He could only shake his head helplessly, his tears flowing even more freely. "No, that's not it. Xia, please, give me another chance. I swear, I will never let you down again. I will treat you right." Gu Qingyu struggled, trying to grab the hem of my robe. I took a step back, avoiding his outstretched hand. "Gu Qingyu, wipe that pathetic look off your face. Every word out of your mouth makes me sick." My words seemed to sting him. He froze on the spot, the color draining from his face. Just then, a staggering figure rushed out. "Help me, please, help me." Yu Wenting collapsed before us, wailing incessantly. At that moment, her face was as pale as parchment, with dark, bloody threads seeping from her eyes, ears, nose, and mouth, exuding the foul stench of impending death. Upon seeing her, Gu Qingyu's already clouded eyes instantly flooded with crimson. The man looked utterly deranged. He lunged forward and clamped his hands around Yu Wenting's slender neck with a death grip. "You wretched woman, how dare you show your face here?" Yu Wenting's eyes rolled back as he choked her, ragged gasps tearing from her throat while her hands clawed frantically at the air. "Brother Qingyu, I was wrong. Xing Xian lied to me. He has no way to save me." She forced the words out with immense difficulty, tears mingling with blood streaming down her face. "You, please beg. Sister Xia, ask her to save me, please. Watching this spectacle of a dog-eat-dog squabble unfold before me, I suddenly found it utterly fascinating. I edged closer to Wen Huizhou, clutching his sleeve, my voice tinged with a perfectly measured tremor of distress. Qingyu, look at her, even now, she still has the audacity to covet my blood. I gazed timidly at Gu Qingyu, and in a voice as fragile as Yu Wenting's once was, I began to speak. That single utterance of Qingyu acted like an incantation, instantly igniting the last thread of sanity in his mind. Gu Qingyu turned his head to look at me, his eyes ablaze with the wild joy of something regained and the desperate madness of a final gamble. Don't be afraid, Xia, don't be afraid, I'll make her disappear from your sight forever, right now. I will never let anyone hurt you again, he roared, as if making a promise to me, or perhaps trying to convince himself. He yanked the barely alive Yu Wenting up from the ground and began dragging her toward the nearby cliff edge. Dragged along the ground, Yu Wenting left a pathetic trail in her wake. The realization that Gu Qingyu truly intended to kill her finally dawned, and terror instantly consumed her. She fought desperately, clinging to Gu Qingyu's leg with all her limbs, shrieking, "No, Qingyu, let me go, I don't want to die, I was wrong." Yet the more she struggled, the more intense the madness on Gu Qingyu's face became. He dragged her, step by step, to the edge of the cliff. Yu Wenting held on to him for dear life, the two of them locked in a desperate struggle, their balance precarious. A single, piercing scream tore through the sky as Gu Qingyu, dragged along by her, plummeted with her into the fathomless abyss. On the wind, the echoes of their final, desperate cries seemed to linger, but soon, all fell into a profound silence. I stood motionless, gazing at the mist-shrouded depths of the chasm. All the hatred and resentment of this life and the last seemed to dissipate into nothingness with their fall. A warm palm covered my eyes, blocking everything from view. When Huizhou's familiar scent enveloped me. Let's go. His voice was low and steady, carrying a reassuring strength. We never finished that last game of chess. Don't even think about trying to weasel out of it this time. The past is but a prologue, and the story between Wen Huizhou and me has only just begun. The end. That's the end of the first story. Don't go away, the next one is even better. On my way home for the new year, I refused an auntie's request to switch seats with me. She actually spread a rumor in front of everyone on the train, asking how a young girl could afford a first-class ticket. She claimed the money must have come from selling her body. I was about to argue back when the train's announcement system suddenly blared, calling for medical personnel. A child had gone into cardiac arrest and needed urgent help. I'm a doctor, and my immediate thought was to rush to the rescue, but to my shock, the older woman grabbed me tightly and wouldn't let go, insisting, "Where's the attendant? This woman is smoking on the high-speed train, arrest her." Because of her false accusation, the child missed the critical window for resuscitation. By the time I finally got there, the little one was already gone. The middle-aged woman shamelessly insisted she was right, saying, "So what if someone died? It just frees up a seat so we can switch spots." What she didn't know was that the child who had died was none other than her own precious grandson. The trip back to my hometown was an 8-hour high-speed rail journey. For the sake of my backside, I reluctantly splurged on a more expensive first-class ticket. I had been on call for a surgery the previous day and worked straight through until dawn. I hadn't slept a wink since and was yawning uncontrollably. The moment I sat down, I started to doze off, fell asleep. I'd barely settled in when someone smacked me hard on the head. "Get up and change seats, we're in carriage 11. I was just dozing off when someone inexplicably whacked my head. Anyone would be annoyed by that. I looked up, suppressing my irritation, and saw a middle-aged woman, followed by a younger woman holding a baby. "Sorry, but I won't swap. Carriage 11 is second class, and this is a first-class seat. Carriage 11 is 8 carriages away from here. Right now, every carriage is packed to the brim, with luggage and crowds of people filling the entire aisle. Getting there would be like trekking through mountains and rivers." But the woman wouldn't let it go, and said with a hint of sarcasm, "We're a family of 3 and we'd like to sit together so we can look out for each other. What's the big deal if a young person like you has to make a small sacrifice? At most, I'll give you $20 to make up for it." Money. Listening to her, I couldn't help but laugh in exasperation. There's a price difference of over 500 yuan between first class and second class, and you're only offering to pay 20, that's a bit much, don't you think? If you wanted to sit together, why didn't you just buy 2 first-class tickets in the first place? So cheap. Yet putting on airs. I was already in a bad mood, and after that little stunt, I felt like slapping that old woman. "What's wrong with you, you little brat? Are you really that hung up on a few bucks?" Her words made me roll my eyes, and I retorted with annoyance, "If you don't care about money, then why don't you pay me back? Stop making snide remarks. It's all because you're broke, isn't it, you bitch? You're the one who's poor. You're destined to be a pathetic pauper your whole life. I have plenty of money, It's just that a heartless person like you isn't worthy of my money." The woman, still fuming, was about to hurl more insults at me when a younger woman beside her quickly intervened. Then, she turned to me and asked apologetically, "I'm sorry. We bought the tickets too late and could only get one first-class seat. My mother-in-law is elderly and has difficulty walking, and I'm traveling with my child and thought a first-class seat would be more spacious. Would it be alright if I pay you the full price for an upgrade to first class?" Seeing the young woman's pleasant attitude and the chance to get money for nothing, I was actually inclined to agree, but the moment that middle-aged woman heard the young woman was going to pay, she immediately looked exasperated, as if despairing of her, and anxiously tried to stop her. "Pay what money? Don't young people these days have any sense of selfless contribution? Didn't your parents teach you to respect the elderly and care for the young, or do you not have parents at all?" That old woman's jab instantly rekindled my temper, and I plopped back down into my seat. "You must have no parents." "I'm not moving." "How dare you speak like that, you little brat? No respect for your elders. I'll teach you a lesson your parents never did." With that, the old woman actually rolled up her sleeves to hit me, but thankfully, her daughter-in-law stopped her. "Oh my goodness, stop making a scene. They're not obligated to switch with us." Her daughter-in-law looked utterly helpless, on the verge of tears. "It seems this mother-in-law is used to throwing her weight around in public." "What do you mean, not obligated? The young should always defer to their elders. What's the point of them living otherwise? If every young person was as selfish as she is, wouldn't society just fall into chaos?" Seeing this unreasonable woman making a scene, I couldn't be bothered to argue with her, so I called for the train attendant. But who would have thought? Instead of backing down when the attendant arrived, she played the victim and made the first complaint. "Attendant, look at the kind of people you're selling tickets to. Even on the bus, young people offer me their seat. Your high-speed rail sells tickets at such high prices, and you don't even screen the people buying them. Sort this out for me right now, or I'll file a complaint against you." The flight attendant, who had been mistaken for a waiter, visibly grimaced. Nevertheless, she checked my ticket and patiently explained to the older woman, saying, "Ma'am, no one is obligated to switch seats with you. She purchased her ticket and has the right to her assigned seat. Please understand." Unconvinced by the flight attendant's explanation, the woman became even more unreasonable and demanding. She pointed her finger right in the attendant's face and started yelling, "Fine, you're all in cahoots. We are a family of 3, and we will sit together. If you don't fix this for me, I'll file a complaint and sue you in court." The flight attendant lost patience and sternly summoned security. "Sir/ma'am, the high-speed train is about to depart. Please do not disrupt order here. If you insist on doing so, then I have the authority to ask you to leave the train to prevent interference with normal operations." "What do you mean? I paid for my ticket and you want to kick me out? Is there no justice anymore?" The middle-aged woman was just about to plop down on the ground and start wailing, but the sudden arrival of the police officer startled her, making her whole body jolt. "Oh, for goodness sake, stop making a scene. Dodgy is waiting for us back home. If we miss this train, we won't be able to get another ticket. I'll just take Mingming to the second-class cabin." With that, the young woman hurriedly left the carriage with her baby, as if making an escape. Seeing that the police officer meant business, the middle-aged woman's bluster instantly deflated. She sat down next to me, clearly displeased, muttering under her breath. I couldn't make out what she was saying. I rolled my eyes, screaming internally, "Of all people, why did I have to end up next to this character?" I put on my headphones, played some soothing music, and the high-speed train began to pull away. 8 more hours on the road. I really hope this lady doesn't start any drama. I just want to get some proper sleep. But of course, she wasn't going to let me off that easily. Just as I was starting to drift off, I heard a snide remark from the seat beside me. "Just ran into some rude little brat. Who knows where she got the money for a first-class ticket?" Hearing that, my drowsiness vanished completely. I took off my headphones, frowned, and looked to the side, only to see that middle-aged woman on a phone call. Noticing my gaze, she rolled her eyes and continued talking as if no one else was there. "Yeah, she looks all glamorous and decked out in designer labels. Who knows how many men she's had to sleep with to get all that?" I saw red. I snatched the phone right out of her hand, hung up, and confronted her. "What are you implying? Do you even know that spreading rumors is illegal?" The middle-aged woman wasn't even angry that I'd taken her phone. Instead, she just looked at me with a knowing expression, getting defensive. "Did I hit a nerve? You must have just graduated, right? A girl like you probably gets a job as an office clerk or an accountant after college, making at most 3 or 4,000 a month. Where on earth did you get the money for a first-class ticket that costs a couple thousand? All those designer labels must have cost a fortune. Have your parents ever owned anything that nice? You make all that dirty money and don't even have the decency to take care of your own parents. Frankly, a girl like you should have been drowned in a pond at birth. I was absolutely furious. I could have slapped that woman right across the face, but reason quickly cooled me down. Even though she was the one running her mouth, if I threw the first punch, I'd be in the wrong, and she's the type of person who would make a huge scene. In the end, it would only backfire on me. The best way to deal with slander and rumors is to avoid the trap of defending yourself. Instead, fight fire with fire. So, mimicking the old woman's sarcastic tone, I gave her and her belongings a thorough once-over. Well, your stuff looks pretty pricey. Did you have to swipe a few old men's pension checks to afford it? Hearing my words, the old woman's face changed, and she roared in anger. What the hell are you talking about? You want me to slap you? Just then, a girl sitting in the seat in front of me turned around with her phone and said, "Ma'am, I've recorded everything you just said. Spreading rumors can lead to legal consequences. All of you, this is outrageous. You only know how to bully a poor old woman like me." The middle-aged woman was absolutely furious, her eyes filled with resentment and anger, but in the end, she didn't dare say another word. I thanked the girl in front of me and went back to resting my eyes. For the next 2 hours, that auntie kept on making phone calls and cracking sunflower seeds, but at least she didn't bother me anymore, and I couldn't be bothered to deal with her. After sleeping like that for 2 hours, I got up and went to wait in front of the restroom. The person in front had just stepped out, and before I could even think about going in, someone shoved me hard from behind. I almost lost my balance. When I looked closely, I saw it was that same middle-aged woman again, this time holding a cup of instant noodles and heading to get hot water. Seeing the displeasure on my face, she stared back with a defiant, shameless look and said, "What are you staring at? It's your own fault for being so big and blocking the way." My heart was trembling with rage, but nature calls, and I had no time to deal with her right then. As soon as I entered the restroom, I placed my bag on the vanity. Suddenly, a plume of smoke billowed out from inside the bag. I was startled. I opened the bag and found a lit cigarette lying inside, though I had no idea when it got there. "What's going on?" I screamed in terror. "I don't smoke at all, and there wasn't even a lighter in my bag. How could there be a lit cigarette inside?" There was no time to think. The tissues, fabric, and other flammable items in the bag were already on fire. I tried to douse it with water, but that only produced thicker, denser smoke. Soon after, the smoke alarm in the restroom began blaring loudly. The next second, the high-speed train started to decelerate noticeably before coming to a complete stop. Then, a loud banging on the door started. "Are you smoking in there?" Smoking on a high-speed train is illegal and can lead to criminal detention in serious cases. "Please open the door and cooperate with our investigation." What the hell is going on? I was on the verge of tears. I quickly opened the door to find the flight attendant standing there with a stern expression. "I honestly have no idea how cigarettes got into my bag. I don't even smoke." I tried desperately to explain myself, but the evidence was right there. Damn, I was at a complete loss for words. The passengers, already irritable from the long journey, grew frantic when the high-speed train came to a halt. Some even started cursing at me. "What are you smoking? If you've got a death wish, go take a puff in a crematorium. My wife is about to give birth. If you make me late, you'll have hell to pay. Get her arrested right now. What if she sets the high-speed train on fire? How dangerous." Just then, that middle-aged woman walked over to me with a smug look on her face and clicked her tongue at me several times. "TSK, TSK, TSK, and you claim you've never done such a thing, so you're secretly into smoking and drinking? Huh, daring to smoke on a high-speed train? I think you're just asking for trouble. Attendant, call security immediately and have this little brat thrown in jail." Looking at her utterly arrogant expression, it suddenly dawned on me. That moment when she bumped into me, the aisle was wide. Why did she have to bump into me? Of all people, the zipper on my bag wasn't even closed properly. It would have been easy to slip something inside. With that thought, my face darkened, and I turned to speak to the flight attendant. "I suspect someone is setting me up. I demand to see the surveillance footage." The flight attendant nodded and prepared to take me to the crew room to review it. Just as expected, the middle-aged woman panicked and said in disbelief, "There are cameras on this train, of course. For the safety of all passengers, there are surveillance cameras in every carriage. Please come this way, ma'am." Before the attendant could finish speaking, the woman suddenly blocked the train door. As if to cover up her own guilt, her voice suddenly grew much louder. "What's the point of checking the cameras? This little brat is just stalling for time. The evidence is clear as day. You need to arrest her right now. Get up." "Look, ma'am, whether I'm innocent or not will be clear as day once we check the security footage. The way you're trying to stop me makes it really hard not to think that you're somehow involved in this." I narrowed my eyes, sizing her up from head to toe, which made her visibly uneasy, but she still held her head high and shouted defiantly, her mouth being the toughest part of her whole body, "You're the one breaking the law. don't try to pin it on me. Security, hurry up and arrest her. What if she gets away? The middle-aged woman planted herself firmly in the doorway, and for a moment, the few people there were at a loss for what to do with her. Just then, the broadcast suddenly blared out urgently. Is there a medical professional on board? A child needs emergency assistance. As a doctor, I have to step in when I hear there's an emergency, but just as I was about to head to the back, someone grabbed my clothes and held on tight. What's the matter? Feeling guilty and trying to run away. I'm telling you, no way, you've wasted so much time. You have to get down on your knees and apologize to everyone on this train, the woman shouted arrogantly, clearly paying no heed to the announcement that had just been made. I already told you it wasn't me. Someone needs emergency medical attention right now. I'm a doctor. Let me go this instant. I was frantic. In an emergency medical situation, every single second is absolutely critical. A doctor, you, don't make me laugh. Are they letting just any old riffraff into hospitals these days? I see what this is. You're just trying to use this as a chance to jump off the train and escape legal punishment. Are you quite finished? I have a medical license. I was about to pull my medical license from my bag, but I realized that little booklet had been burned to ashes long ago. Where are you? Can't find it now. Can you? Liar, don't you dare run. Weren't you just saying spreading rumors and slander has legal consequences? You're the one spreading lies. I put cigarettes in your bag, and I'm going to report you right now. The woman had a death grip on me. I struggled forward, trying to break free, and in the tussle, my clothes were nearly torn off, exposing me. I had no choice but to frantically free one hand to cover my chest, but the woman wouldn't let up. She actually pinned me down beneath her, refusing to let go no matter how much the onlookers pleaded. Let me go. She was a big woman, and her weight nearly crushed the breath out of me. Get off me. If someone dies because you didn't get help in time, could you live with yourself? I'm being crushed. I can barely breathe, he shouted with all his might. If a woman like her had any conscience, she wouldn't have demanded to switch seats with me so matter-of-factly in the first place. So what? Dead is dead. No one's life is more important than mine. I've been wronged, and you have to give me an answer. Either pay up or you're going to jail. This is the most helpless moment of my entire life. Just then, the sound of frantic footsteps echoed through the train car. A young woman, clutching a child, came running towards us, tears streaming down her face. A doctor. Is there a doctor here? Please, someone help my son. He's dying. I strained to lift my head and look, and what I saw nearly made my jaw drop. Wasn't this woman the daughter-in-law of that older lady? So, that would mean the child needing emergency care was that older lady's grandson. Sure enough, the weight on me vanished instantly, followed only by a heart-wrenching scream from behind. My grandson. How can this be my grandson? Someone help, please, save my grandson. The elderly woman sprang up, rushed over, and snatched the infant from the young woman's arms. Gasping for breath, I struggled to my feet, leaning heavily on a nearby chair, and said, "Put the child down on the floor and let me have a look." But the old woman acted as if she hadn't heard a thing, clutching her precious grandson. She was hopping from foot to foot in a panic, crying out over and over, my boy, wake up. How is your granny supposed to live without you?" It was as if she believed she could shout him back to consciousness. I yelled urgently, "Put the child down on the ground, now, stop shaking him like that, you're going to kill him." But, the woman was as deaf as a post and simply refused to do as I said. Finally, her daughter-in-law snapped. She slapped her across the face and screamed hysterically, "Are you listening? Put Ming down right now. Let the doctor see him." The slap seemed to snap her out of it. She just stood there, stunned. The young woman rushed over and held her son out to me, begging me over and over to save him. The child's face had already turned blue, and he was barely breathing. I immediately began performing CPR and rescue breaths on the child, not daring to waste a single moment. The vehicle started moving again. We had to get off at the next high-speed rail station and rush him to the hospital, but only I knew, from the moment I first laid eyes on the child, that his chances of survival were extremely slim. All that effort was just for show, to appease the family. If only we had acted sooner, things might not have turned out this way. Just then, a bystander voiced exactly what I was thinking. That damn old woman is nothing but a jinx. What was she doing blocking the doctor? Now look, it's her own grandchild who's paying the price. My grandson is on the table now. Are you happy yet? The old woman still didn't seem to think she had done anything wrong and stubbornly continued, "How was I supposed to know it would turn out like this? It's all this bitch's fault. If she hadn't set fire to her medical license, I wouldn't have been unaware she was a doctor. It's all her fault. If my grandson isn't cured, I'll make you pay." From the moment she boarded, she kept making disruptive noises in the carriage. Then, with that classic case of the thief crying "Stop thief," she had already stirred up public outrage. Before long, everyone in the carriage was hurling insults at this woman, berating her until she cowered in a corner, trembling. Not a trace of her earlier arrogance remained. Time ticked by. The next stop, which should have been just 10 minutes away, was delayed because the woman falsely accused me of smoking. More than 10 minutes. The child's little face had gradually turned from ashen to a purplish black, and not even the faintest trace of a breath could be detected. We finally arrived at the high-speed rail station and were quickly transferred to the nearest hospital, but just as I had feared, despite performing uninterrupted CPR and rescue breathing from start to finish, I couldn't bring him back. Come on. The doctor at the hospital examined the child's condition, shook his head, and sighed. It's too late. If only they had brought him in sooner or started CPR earlier. The young woman collapsed to the ground as if struck by lightning, her eyes brimming with tears of utter despair. Watching her in that state sent a sharp pang of anguish through my heart. She shouldn't have had to endure this. There was still hope for the child. I let out a long sigh and was just about to leave when I heard the woman's heart-wrenching scream. My grandson, wake up, my dear grandson, don't you leave your grandma behind. The old woman was weeping bitterly when she looked up and saw me. Her eyes suddenly blazed with intense hatred. Is it because you, this wretched woman, didn't do everything you could to save my grandson that this happened to him? He was our family's precious golden boy. You killed him. I want you to pay with your life. With that, the woman charged at me like a madwoman, trying to hit me. Fortunately, she was promptly stopped by the hospital security guards. Seeing her in that state, I just felt utterly drained and exhausted. It was you who kept stopping me. If you had let me get him emergency care sooner, your grandson wouldn't have died. You're the one who killed him. You're the murderer, I said, enunciating every word. Deep down, the woman knew the truth perfectly well, but she just refused to admit it. Shifting the blame onto someone else was, for her, the only right choice. She tried to lunge at me, but the next second, her daughter-in-law flew at her like a madwoman, and the two of them started brawling. It's all your fault. Why did you have to grab that doctor and not let her leave? Now look what's happened. Your grandson is gone. Are you happy now? Are you happy now? How much longer are you going to keep ruining our family? Will you only be satisfied when you've driven me to my death? The young woman had completely broken down. At this point, it wouldn't be surprising if she did something extreme, but the old woman remained stubborn as a mule, refusing to admit her mistake. How dare you, you little wretch, taking an outsider's side against your own mother-in-law? Do you think I wanted any of this? If you ask me, it's all because of that bitch who refused to switch seats in the first place. If she had just agreed like a decent person, I wouldn't have grabbed her, and my precious grandson would still be alive. She's the one who killed my grandson. I'm calling the police on her. Speak of the devil. The police arrived the very next second. The middle-aged woman seemed to have spotted her savior. She strode over, clutched the police officer's hand tightly, and pointed at me, while shouting sharply, "Officer, arrest that wretched woman over there. She's a doctor who treats human life as worthless. She set a fire on the high-speed train, and she killed my precious grandson. Sentence her to death. Better yet, have her executed by 1,000 cuts." Under the woman's agitated gaze, the police officer produced a pair of handcuffs, but the handcuffs were meant for the old lady. Why are you arresting me? I'm a law-abiding citizen. I am, the old lady cried out in shock. We just reviewed the surveillance footage from the high-speed train and found that you lit a cigarette and placed it in that lady's bag, which forced the train to make an emergency stop. Your actions have seriously endangered public order and the safety of others' lives. You're coming with us. Get in the car. The police officer barked sternly. No, it wasn't me. I didn't do it. You've got the wrong person. You bitch. It's all your fault, you bitch. I'll kill you. The middle-aged woman, now resembling a vengeful wraith from the abyss, lunged at me with claws bared, as if to tear me limb from limb, but she was no match for the police. In a matter of moments, she was subdued, handcuffed, and taken away to face the full force of the law. I went to the police station to give a statement, and I was completely exhausted watching the young woman's lonely figure walk away. I wanted to offer comfort but couldn't find the words. In the end, I left quietly and boarded another high-speed train home. I had thought this incident would be just a minor episode in my life, and that I would never see this infuriating person again, a woman grinding her teeth in fury. But then, during the New Year celebrations the following year, I found a drunk man lying in the snow on my way back from a late-night snack. Hey man, are you okay? Wake up. I hurried over and slapped the face of the drunken man. It was a snowy night, with the temperature plummeting to over 20 degrees below zero. A thin layer of snow had already settled on him. The next second, he let out a low groan. I thought he had woken up and was about to breathe a sigh of relief, but then he unconsciously began to remove his clothes with his hands. Oh no, he's hypothermic. If we don't perform first aid soon, he'll freeze to death in this snowy night. Quick, get him into the car. I'll take him to the hospital. My friend and I managed to lift the drunk man into the car. Just as I was about to get in and turn on the heater, another piece of bad News hit us, the heater seems to be frozen solid, it just won't blow any warm air. It was pitch black outside, everyone had gone home to rest, so there was no one around to help. There were no warm clothes or medicine in the car. The only option now was to floor it and get him to the hospital as fast as possible, but fate had other plans. On a narrow, unavoidable road to the hospital, a large truck loaded with cabbages was blocking the way. Stuck, I was frantic. I honked the horn several times, but no one came out to move the car. With no other choice, I got out of the car and started shouting into the vicinity, "Whose car is parked here? Get it out of the way now, or someone's going to get killed." I nearly shouted, my throat raw. After what felt like an eternity, someone finally sauntered out from the side. "What's all the racket? It's the middle of the night. Can't you let people sleep? Is there no other road you could take?" The person walked into the beam of the headlights. When we saw who it was, both she and I were stunned, our jaws nearly hitting the floor. Wasn't this the same woman who was making a huge, dramatic scene on the high-speed train last year? They say hatred outlasts love, and we both recognized each other almost instantly. The sight of me made her seethe with rage. "How dare you show your face, you bitch? You killed my grandson, drove my daughter-in-law away, and landed me in prison. How dare you?" Appearing before my very eyes after hearing what she said, I was absolutely furious. She's been to prison and back, yet she still doesn't get it. She brought all of this on herself. I don't have time for this nonsense. I've got someone in the back who needs emergency care. Move your car, now, I said urgently. The way, but the old woman just sneered contemptuously, as if she couldn't care less about the whole affair. That excuse again. How is it that your luck is so good that every time you run into me, someone's on the verge of death? Let me tell you, if you want to get past me, you'll have to give me back my grandson's life first. Sometimes, you can be so angry that you just have to laugh. What do you mean, give his life back? Do you still believe I'm the one who killed your grandson? What else could it be? You saw it was my grandson and held back to get revenge on me. You probably even sabotaged things on purpose and finished him off. Otherwise, why would a perfectly healthy boy die the moment he was in your care? Her sheer obstinacy in arguing really opened my eyes to the wonderful diversity of humankind. Your grandson was never in good health to begin with. He has a congenital heart condition and should have stayed in the hospital for a while, but you people insisted on taking him out. Fine, I don't want to argue about this anymore. Could you please just move your car right now? There's literally someone behind my car who's dying. If you don't believe me, come and see for yourself. I opened the door and beckoned the woman over to take a look, but she stood her ground, unmoving, her eyes filled with disdain. "I'm not going over there. For all I know, the moment I step closer, you'll bundle me into a car, kill me, and dump my body somewhere. People like you are full of nothing but wicked schemes." Suddenly, her eyes darted around, and she continued, "Fine, I'll move the car, but you have to compensate me. That includes the death compensation for my grandson, my lost wages for the year I spent in jail, and my emotional distress damages. Also, the bride price for my son to remarry. I'm not asking for much, just 1 million from you. Give me the money, and I'll leave right now." I was utterly stunned. Even a lion wouldn't have the nerve to ask for that much. "You must be out of your mind. I've told you, you brought this all on yourself. It has absolutely nothing to do with me. Now give me the car keys." With that, I lunged forward to snatch her car keys, but she just collapsed onto the ground, letting out a feral scream. "Ah, murder, you goddamned bitch. You killed my grandson and now you want to kill me too. Just picking on a poor old woman, is that it, isn't it? My life is so cursed. My grandson is gone, my daughter-in-law ran off, and I was even framed and sent to prison for a year. Why is heaven doing this to me? This is so unfair to me." Her shout woke all the sleeping neighbors in the vicinity, and they all came out to watch the commotion. People like her are absolute soul-suckers. Even spending a few minutes with her feels mentally draining. At that moment, my anxiety and fury were so overwhelming, I was on the verge of a breakdown. Just then, my friend in the car suddenly shouted at me, "Get back here, this man is fading fast." I reacted as if facing a grave threat and immediately sprinted back to the car. I saw that the drunk man's face had turned as white as a sheet. His clothes had been removed at some point, leaving his bare torso exposed. I frantically rubbed his skin with my hands, trying to generate some warmth, all the while whispering words of encouragement in his ear. "Buddy, stay with me. Don't you dare fall asleep. Think of your wife and kids, think of your parents. They're all waiting for you back home." I don't know if my words got through to him, but his eyelids suddenly twitched. My heart leaped with hope, and I immediately doubled my efforts, rubbing his skin more vigorously. Suddenly, he mumbled something, his lips moving. I quickly leaned in to listen. Don't save me. What kind of nonsense is that? There's nothing in this world you can't get through. Snap out of it. we're almost at the hospital, open your eyes, I shouted in desperation, rushing forward to pry his eyelids open. Then, in the very next second, a single tear traced a path down from the corner of his eye. My son is gone, my wife left me, my whole life has been tormented by my mother, I'm in so much pain, I really can't go on living. I didn't understand what he meant by that. I only knew his voice was growing fainter and fainter. Hey, wake up, don't fall asleep no matter how loudly I screamed. It was all in vain. His arm slowly fell, and there was not a sound or sign of life left. I knelt on the back seat, staring blankly at the scene before me. Just then, that woman came over again, muttering disdainfully, keep up the act, why don't you? You're no doctor, you're an actor. Let's see if there's really a dead body in your back seat. Confident of her victory, she reached into the back seat and slapped the man across the face, but the next second, she seemed to see something utterly horrifying. Her whole body trembled violently, as if a motor had been installed in every single bone. Daji, she cried out a name in disbelief. Before I could even process what was happening, she had slumped to the ground, wailing, Daji, how can it be you? Daji, my son, please, wake up. Everything happened so suddenly that I was left standing there, frozen and at a complete loss. At this, the neighbors who had gathered to watch the commotion all rushed forward, seeing that the victim was someone they knew. They anxiously shouted at the elderly woman, Auntie, hurry up and move that car so we can get Daji to the hospital. But the old woman was just like last year on the train car, holding her son as if she'd lost her mind, doing nothing but wailing, my son, wake up, you can't leave your mother all alone. Her state had the neighbors so frantic that one of them snatched the keys from her and moved the truck themselves. I quickly got in the car and rushed the mother and son to the hospital. Oh, my child, why is my fate so bitter? Why must there be someone trying to harm our family every single day? The entire way, she kept wailing from the back seat, lamenting the injustice of her fate. Yet from the very beginning to the very end, no one ever intended to harm their family. On the contrary, it was I who had been trying everything in my power to save them. Yet, she single-handedly managed to thwart it all. They arrived at the hospital quickly, but it was already too late. The man's hypothermia was so severe that there was no chance of saving him. The older woman was wailing her heart out at the entrance to the emergency room. Now, exhausted from crying, she had slumped down in the corner. Just then, the young woman arrived. A year had passed, and her face was gaunt and haggard, as if she had aged a decade. She stood at the operating room door, gazing at the body of the man she once loved. Her thoughts were unreadable, her face expressionless, and her eyes dry as if to mask her own guilt and shame. The older woman grabbed her former daughter-in-law by the hair and began screaming at her, it's all your fault, you wretched woman. If you hadn't left my son, he wouldn't have been out drinking alone, and he wouldn't have been left outside to freeze to death. I'll kill you. The young woman stood there as if her soul had left her body, motionless and unresisting as the older woman attacked her. I couldn't stand to watch any longer. I rushed forward and desperately pulled them apart, finally unleashing the fury I'd been holding back. Are you done yet? Last year, you stopped me from saving your grandson, and then you blamed me. This year, you're still stopping me from going to save your son, and you're blaming others again. Have you ever stopped to think about your own role in this? All of this is your fault. It's all because of you. At my outburst, the woman deflated like a punctured balloon and slumped to the ground. Then, she clutched her own hair and wailed, crying as if she wanted to tear her own voice out. I was utterly exhausted too. After one last, deep look at the emergency room, I turned and left in silence. I thought that was the end of it. To my surprise, a few days later, I was served with a lawyer's letter. In the lawyer's letter, she accused me of causing her son's death through my delay. Perhaps she also knows that a lawsuit filed on these grounds would absolutely not be accepted. Yet the reason she still did this was merely to find a psychological crutch, to shift her own fault onto someone else so she could suffer a little less from the pangs of conscience. As expected, no matter how many times she sued, she lost every single case. Yet she refused to give up. Somehow, she learned how to livestream and began airing her grievances against me to a massive online audience. Netizens, unaware of the full story, sympathized with her pitiful plight and swiftly launched a wave of online harassment. But once again, she overlooked one crucial detail. My car was also equipped with a dashcam. I posted the entire, uncut video of me rescuing the drunk man and then being blocked by that woman on the way to the hospital online, and I dug up the high-speed train arson case from a year ago that blew up on social media. Public opinion has completely shifted again, with netizens who once supported her now turning against her. How shameless can you be? How dare you criticize such a kind-hearted doctor? If it weren't for you, your grandson and son could have received fast, professional medical care. But you ruined everything. You're the one who is responsible for their deaths. If I were you, I'd be so ashamed I'd have jumped off a building by now. How can you bear to live in this world and still have the nerve to smear the doctor's reputations here? She was quickly flamed online to the point of getting her account banned, and the courts even refused to accept any of her lawsuits regarding the matter after that. I finally had a bit of peace and quiet for a while. I swallowed my anger and looked up to see who it was, finding a middle-aged woman, with a younger woman holding a baby following behind her. A young woman stabbed her former mother-in-law to death before jumping from a building to her own death. I was stunned for a long time after reading this news. Do you ask if I have any regrets? I have none. Healing the sick and saving the dying is my calling. Even if I had to do it all over again, I would exhaust every possible means to attempt a rescue. Yet, I feel a profound sense of injustice and anger for that poor family of 3. They should have had a happy family and a bright future. I hope in their next life, they get everything they wished for. Story 2. The year Fu Qingyi's family went bankrupt, she and Xin Yanbai got married. In the 3rd year of her marriage to Xin Yanbai, the man took a mistress. He said the girl was naive and innocent, utterly simple, loving fine food, beauty, and him. So Xin Yanbai strapped Fu Qingyi to an operating table, intending to implant her with an embryo that belonged to him and his mistress. Qingyi, be good, don't you love children? Zhiyun wants to have a child with me. She's a young girl who cares about her figure, so you can carry the baby for her. Afterwards, it will be our child. Fu Qingyi stared at the man before her with red-rimmed eyes, her voice trembling. Xin Yanbai, have you lost your mind? What do you take me for? A breeding tool for you 2 adulterers. The operating room lights were so blinding that Fu Qingyi couldn't keep her eyes open, her wrists raw and bleeding from the leather belt Xin Yanbai had used to restrain her. Yet none of that physical agony could compare to the ache in her heart. The man before her was her childhood sweetheart, the one who had promised to love her forever since they were young. Even 3 years ago, when the Fu family went bankrupt, her father lay in the ICU fighting for his life in desperate need of a kidney transplant, and everyone in their social circle mocked her as a fallen princess. Xin Yanbai hadn't shown up for 3 days. She thought he had abandoned her too, but 3 days later, he was wheeled out of the operating room alongside his father. Was the Xin Yanbai from back then and the one standing before her now truly the same person? Qingyi, stop this. Xin Yanbai crouched down, his fingertips reaching for her cheek, only for her to suddenly bite down on his finger. Xin Yanbai frowned slightly, letting her bite down with all her might, until the flesh was torn and bloody. The man's tone was coaxing, as if Fu Qingyi was just throwing another tantrum. Feel better now? If not, you can bite my other hand. Qingyi, Zhiyun is sensitive to pain and still just a girl. What's the harm in letting her have her way? Besides, even if you're unwilling to bear a child, the Fu family still needs an heir. Fu Qingyi let out a sudden, bitter laugh, tears streaming down and splashing onto the surgical consent form. Xin Yanbai, you like children? I know. Xin Yanbai straightened up, his tone turning colder as if scolding her for being unreasonable. You told me years ago you wanted 2 children, one like you and one like me. Now Zhiyun is pregnant. Can't you just do this for me? Do this for you? Fu Qingyi dug her nails into her own flesh, the sharp pain the only thing keeping her mind clear. Why didn't you bother asking if I'm willing? She cares about her figure, so I'm just supposed to suffer in her place. The operating room door swung open, and a doctor in a white coat walked in, holding the anesthesia consent form. Xin Yanbai took the pen and held it before her. Sign here. It's general anesthesia. You'll be fine when you wake up. Fu Qingyi suddenly turned her head and sank her teeth into his wrist, using every ounce of her strength, as a heavier, metallic taste of blood exploded on her tongue. She heard him grunt in pain. Qingyi. He shook his hand as he stumbled back, the last trace of tenderness in his eyes shattering completely. Don't make me force you. Fu Qingyi was on the verge of madness, convinced that Xin Yanbai had lost his mind too. She shouted at the man she once loved deeply. Aren't you forcing yourself on me right now? Xin Yanbai, however, turned a deaf ear, his face cold. He took the anesthetic syringe from the doctor and moved toward her. Qingyi, you'll feel better when you wake up. Stop making a fuss. His tone was flat and unfamiliar. It was as if the Xin Yanbai who once loved her had never existed. Seeing this, Fu Qingyi felt a wave of despair rise from the depths of her heart. She absolutely refused to become Xin Yanbai's breeding machine. She struggled desperately, her mind consumed by the single thought of escaping this nightmare. Just then, Xin Yanbai's phone rang abruptly. He glanced impatiently at the caller ID, and his previously stern expression instantly softened, a hint of tenderness flickering in his eyes. He quickly answered the call, his voice gentle. Zhiyun, what's wrong? Zhiyun's frail sobbing came through the line. Yanbai, my stomach hurts. It hurts so much. I want to see you. I need to see you right now. Her voice was thick with a coquettish whine, dripping with boundless grievance. Xin Yanbai instinctively glanced at Fu Qingyi, who was strapped to the operating table with tear-streaked cheeks. After a moment's hesitation, he soothed, Darling, just a moment, I have something to handle here. I'll be right over as soon as I'm done. No, you come right now. Jian was relentless. If you don't come, I'm in so much pain I don't know what to do. Shen Yanbai looked at the anesthetic syringe in his hand and ultimately gave in. He shot Fu Qingyi a fierce glare, as if blaming her for her lack of cooperation, then slammed the anesthetic syringe back onto the tray and hurried towards the operating room door. Just before exiting, he didn't forget to turn back and instruct the anesthesiologist, keep an eye on her for me. Wait until I get back. Fu Qingyi watched his retreating figure, feeling completely drained as tears welled up uncontrollably. The anesthesiologist stood to the side, watching the chaotic scene unfold before him, his heart filled with conflict and helplessness. He was acutely aware of the complex entanglements behind this farce and dared not act on his own authority. He could only stand there helplessly, his gaze flickering towards Fu Qingyi from time to time, yet never daring to take any further action. After a long while, Fu Qingyi came to her senses, summoning her strength. Despite her frail state, she used her still trembling hands to undo the leather strap restraining her wrists. With each buckle she loosened, the bruised, purplish skin beneath throbbed with fresh pain. She staggered to her feet, her legs weak and unsteady, nearly collapsing to the ground. Leaning on the operating table, she inched her way toward the door of the operating room. Stepping out of the operating room, the world outside was still brightly lit and bustling with people, yet none of it seemed to have anything to do with her anymore. Utterly devastated, she slid down the wall into a crouch, unable to suppress her low, choked sobs. After crying for a long while, she pulled out her phone with trembling hands and began searching through her contacts for that number, so familiar, yet now so strange too. After finding the number, she took a deep breath and pressed the call button. The call connected, and a low voice came from the other end. Miss Fu, what brings you to call me all of a sudden? Fu Qingyi bit her lip, trying to keep her voice steady. How about we make a deal? A deal? The other party chuckled softly. Interesting, Miss Fu, aren't you and Shen Yanbai the picture of marital bliss? And now you want to make a deal with me? Tell me, what kind of chips could you possibly offer that would interest me? Fu Qingyi tightened her grip on the phone, her voice laced with hatred. There was a brief silence on the other end of the line, followed by a meaningful laugh. Miss Fu, it seems you're truly backed into a corner this time, but you should think carefully. Are you really willing to be so ruthless to your own husband? He is not my husband. By the end, her voice was choked with emotion. Good, the other party replied readily. I'll trust you this once. However, I need time to verify the authenticity of the information you've provided. Once I've confirmed it's accurate, I'll act immediately. I hope you won't let me down, Miss Fu. I won't, Fu Qingyi said resolutely. I'll get you what you need as soon as possible. After hanging up the phone, Fu Qingyi leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. She knew she had embarked on a path of no return. Her confrontation with Shen Yanbai was only just beginning. Fu Qingyi returned home. She didn't turn on the lights, simply sitting on the sofa until Shen Yanbai came back. He still carried the scent of that peach perfume Zhuyan always wore. Seeing Fu Qingyi sitting in the dark, he paused for a moment before slipping into his usual gentle demeanor. He turned on the light. Why are you sitting in the dark? How long have you been here? Fu Qingyi looked up, her gaze calm. She didn't answer him. Shen Yanbai acted as if he didn't notice her coldness. He sat down beside her anyway and reached out to put his arm around her shoulder. When she subtly avoided his touch, he awkwardly withdrew his hand, his tone apologetic. Qingyi, I was wrong about what happened earlier today. Zhuyan came to me later, acting all sweet, and said she's thought it over. She's willing to carry the child herself and doesn't want to trouble you. So, forget about the whole embryo transfer thing. Please don't take it to heart. As he said this, his eyes darted away. Unable to meet Fu Qingyi's gaze, he lied. It wasn't that Zhuyan had a change of heart, it was because Zhuyan threw a tearful fit, saying she was afraid Fu Qingyi would hold a grudge and treat the child poorly in the future. In his eyes, Fu Qingyi had always been soft-natured. A few soothing words were enough to make her swallow the grievances of the day. Fu Qingyi looked at his hypocritical face, a slight smirk curling at the corner of her lips. She pulled a neatly folded document from her bag and handed it to him. Don't worry about it. I happened to pass by a jewelry store this afternoon and took a liking to a set. The sales associate said I needed your signature to place the order. Take a look. Her tone, as expected, didn't raise any suspicion in Shen Yanbai. In the past, whenever Fu Qingyi wanted jewelry, she had always asked him in this same docile, gentle manner. After all, the Shen family had more than enough money for such things. He didn't even bother to unfold the document. After a cursory glance at the words agreement form on the cover page, he simply pulled a pen from his suit's inner pocket, signed his name, and handed it back to her. With a smile, he ruffled her hair and said, if you like it, buy it, my missus, Shen can have Anything she wants. Fu Qingyi took the divorce agreement from them, letting out a cold, silent laugh in her heart. Hungry? Shen Yanbai asked, as if trying to make up for his earlier mistake. He stood up and headed for the kitchen. I'll make your favorite sweet and sour mandarin fish as an apology. Don't hold a grudge against your husband, be the bigger person. As he tied on the apron, he took on a certain warmth. The kind that belongs to a man at home. It had been months since he last cooked. For her, ever since he met Zhu Yun, even on Fu Qingyi's birthday, he'd used work as an excuse and had the housekeeper do it. Yet now, to appease her, he was willing to cook himself. The sounds of running water and chopping came from the kitchen. Leaning against the doorframe, Fu Qingyi watched his back and suddenly spoke. Shen Yanbai, you said Zhu Yun wouldn't shake my position, that I'll always be Mrs. Shen, is that true? Shen Yanbai paused his chopping. He turned to look at her, a smile in his eyes, his tone resolute. Of course it's true, you are my lawfully wedded wife. Even though the Fu family has fallen, no one can replace your place in my heart. Zhu Yun is just a trifle, a little songbird. One tires of such playthings. How could she possibly compare to you? So you'd do anything for me? Fu Qingyi asked again, her voice soft. I'd do anything to make you happy. Shen Yanbai placed the fish into the sizzling oil, his tone ingratiating amidst the crackle. Actually, it's just as well the procedure didn't happen today. I thought about it afterwards and couldn't bear the thought of you suffering. Don't you always tell me how your mother had a difficult labor with your brother, and you're still haunted by it? How could I ever truly let you go through the ordeal of pregnancy? He wasn't lying completely. He genuinely feared something might happen to Fu Qingyi during a pregnancy. Even though Zhu Yun was currently the one who pleased him, yet the one he loved most in his heart was always Fu Qingyi. Fu Qingyi stood in place, watching his busy figure, a slow smile curling at the corner of her mouth. The aroma of fish gradually wafted from the pot, a scent she once loved most, but now, it only smelled pungent and sickening. Night deepened, and the only sound left in the villa was the hum of the central air conditioning. Fu Qingyi sat at the dining table. Before her lay the steaming sweet and sour mandarin fish, its sauce glistening, yet the hand holding her chopsticks remained still. The shock from the operating room earlier that day hadn't faded. Her stomach was already in knots, seized by waves of cramping pain that made even breathing hurt. Shen Yanbai walked over with a bowl of warm water. Seeing her untouched chopsticks, his brow furrowed slightly. Why aren't you eating? Does it not suit your taste? He reached out to touch her forehead, but the moment his fingertips brushed her skin, Fu Qingyi instinctively flinched away. His hand froze midair, then withdrew as if he hadn't noticed. It settled instead on her lower abdomen, his warm palm gently massaging the area. Is your stomach hurting again? After all that commotion today, you must have caught a chill. Fu Qingyi's body stiffened, and the nausea in her stomach intensified. This was the same hand that had once held a belt to bind her wrists, that had forced her compliance with a syringe. Now, resting on her belly, it made the day's cruelty feel like a distant illusion. She suppressed her nausea, keeping her eyes downcast and silent, her lashes veiling the icy chill in her gaze. It wasn't the time to burn bridges yet. The divorce papers weren't finalized. She needed to wait a little longer. Shen Yanbai seemed lost in the tenderness of his own making, rubbing her stomach as he coaxed softly. Just bear with it a little longer. I'll make you some millet porridge later. It's good for the stomach. His voice was impossibly gentle. In the past, Fu Qingyi would have been overjoyed to hear it, but now, it just made her feel like she couldn't breathe. Just then, the ringtone shattered the living room's quiet once more. Shen Yanbai pulled it out and saw Zhu Yun displayed on the screen. The softness on his face faded instantly. Frowning, he hit the decline button and explained to Fu Qingyi with a hint of impatience. That girl, she can't even give me peace at night. But no sooner had the words left his mouth than the phone rang again. Still Zhu Yun. Shen Yanbai's expression darkened, his finger hovered over the screen for a moment, but in the end, he didn't answer. He simply powered it off. He turned to Fu Qingyi. Ignore her. She's just being childish. We'll deal with it tomorrow. Fu Qingyi looked up, catching a flicker of irritation in his eyes. A cold laugh echoed in her heart, so even his most cherished canary could grate on his nerves. She didn't respond, merely taking a small sip from the glass of lukewarm water in front of her. The temperature was just right, yet it couldn't warm her heart. However, the quiet didn't last 2 minutes before another call came through, this time from Shen Yanbai's assistant. This time, he answered without hesitation, his tone far from pleasant. What is it? But as he listened to the assistant's frantic report on the other end, Shen Yanbai's expression gradually shifted. The hand that had been resting on Fu Qingyi's stomach abruptly withdrew. He stood up, his voice frantic. What did you say? Fu Qingyi remained seated, motionless. She could even clearly hear the assistant's anxious voice from the other end of the phone. Mr. Shen, you must come quickly. Miss Su says. She says Madam has been tying you down. keeping you from her on purpose, trying to drive her to her death. She's standing on the edge of the rooftop now, swaying with every gust of wind. Nothing we say can talk her down. Shen Yanbai's breathing grew heavy. He turned to look at Fu Qingyi, his expression complex. There was worry for Zhu Yun in his gaze, but also reproach, as if Zhu Yun's desperate act was all Fu Qingyi's fault. Without another word to Fu Qingyi, he snatched his coat from the sofa and strode toward the door, his hurried footsteps leaving not a single farewell in their wake. The front door slammed shut with a bang, and silence once again descended upon the villa. Fu Qingyi set down her water glass, staring at the plate of sweet and sour squirrel fish growing cold on the table. She finally doubled over, leaning against the dining table as dry heaves racked her body. It took her a long moment to recover. Straightening up, she pulled the signed divorce papers from her bag, her fingertips lightly tracing over Shen Yanbai's signature. Just wait a little longer. We just need to wait a little longer. Fu Qingyi picked up her phone and sent a message to Shen Yanbai's arch-rival. Your turn next. In the dead of night, exhaustion finally overcame the discomfort in her stomach. Fu Qingyi curled up in bed under a heavy velvet duvet, yet she still felt cold. In a daze, she slipped into a dream. In the dream, the Fu family was as it had been before the bankruptcy. Her mother was in the kitchen baking her favorite cookies, her father sat on the sofa reading the financial news, and her younger brother, Fu Qingyu, leaned in beside her, holding up a newly assembled Lego spaceship and calling, "Look, sis." But the scene suddenly shattered, replaced by the glaring red light outside the ICU. Her father lay in a hospital bed covered in tubes, and her little brother clung to her leg, sobbing, "Sis, I'm scared." Then, his figure grew fainter and fainter, until finally, he vanished into a blanket of white mist. Fu Qingyi reached out to grab him, but her hands closed on nothing but cold, empty air. She cried out "Qingyu," and jolted awake from the dream, her forehead drenched in cold sweat. Before she could fully gather her thoughts, the bedroom door was gently knocked. From outside came the hesitant voice of her assistant, Chen Chao. "Madam, are you awake, Mr. Shen?" "Mr. Shen has returned. He asks that you come downstairs." For the drowsiness vanished instantly from Fu Qingyi's eyes. She knew Zhu Yun wouldn't let this matter rest. The rooftop farce was just the beginning. Now, this little canary is about to enter the main hall. She didn't turn on the light, changing into a plain silk nightgown in the dark to cover the fading red marks on her wrists. All the lights in the living room were switched on. Shen Yanbai sat in the very center of the sofa. Zhu Yun, clinging to him like a frightened pet, revealed a bandage-wrapped ankle beneath her skirt, looking utterly pitiful. The moment Fu Qingyi descended, the vulnerability in Zhu Yun's eyes, hidden behind Shen Yanbai's shoulder, vanished instantly, replaced by a provocative smirk curling at the corner of her lips. That gaze seemed to gloat, yet also to declare, "See, he still protects me." Shen Yanbai looked up and saw Fu Qingyi. His brow furrowed slightly as he spoke in a weary tone. "Qingyi, come here." Zhu Yun accidentally sprained her ankle on the rooftop today. The doctor said she needs complete rest. It's more convenient for her to stay here for a while, as we have the housekeeper to look after her. Fu Qingyi stood motionless at the top of the stairs, her gaze fixed on Zhu Yun's bandaged ankle. A cold sneer formed in her heart. Didn't die from the fall, but managed to sprain an ankle first. How thoroughly planned this little act is. Before she could speak, Shen Yanbai continued, "Also, about today, Zhu Yun says she didn't mean to cause a scene, she's just terrified of losing me." She was already in a bad mood, and now she's hurt. Just humor her, apologize, and we can put this behind us. Apologize. Fu Qingyi finally spoke. "Shen Yanbai, you want me to apologize to her?" She took 2 steps forward, stopping before the sofa, her gaze fixed directly on Shen Yanbai. "Did I force her to run to the rooftop and threaten suicide? Now she's moving into our home, and you still want me to apologize to her? Tell me, where did I go wrong? Was it by not obediently letting you push me onto the operating table, or by not standing by and watching your child be born inside me?" Frightened by her intensity, Zhu Yun shrank back into Shen Yanbai's arms, tears welling up. "Sister, that's not what I meant. I was just so scared. Yanbai is the most important person to me. I can't lose him." As she spoke, her tears began to fall. Shen Yanbai patted Zhu Yun's back to comfort her. When he looked up at Fu Qingyi, his eyes held reproach. "Qingyi, Zhu Yun is still young. Why are you picking a fight with her? I'm asking you to apologize just so we can have some peace at home. Do you really want to watch us argue every single day? Peace and quiet. From the day you brought her into the Shen family, this house was doomed to lose its peace." Shen Yanbai, "I'm leaving. You're being utterly unreasonable." Shen Yanbai's patience had finally run out. "I can't be bothered to argue with you. Zhu Yun will stay here. You will apologize, whether you want to or not. Don't be so willful. don't forget, the former employees of the Fu family are all still working at the Shin Group, and another thing, you are Mrs. Shin. If you move out, what will people think of our family? She looked at the man before her, feeling an overwhelming sense of unfamiliarity. How had Shin Yanbai, the man who had donated a kidney without hesitation to save her father, become this person standing before her now? She took a deep breath, suppressing the sting in her eyes, and spoke slowly. All right, I apologize. Shin Yanbai was taken aback, seemingly not expecting her to give in so easily. Jian also raised her head, her eyes brimming with smug satisfaction. My apologies for not divorcing Shin Yanbai sooner to make way for you, Miss Su. Shin Yanbai's face turned ashen with rage, his hand raised as if to strike her. Fu Qingyi lifted her chin, meeting her gaze. She watched his hand freeze midair and said softly, Shin Yanbai, if you dare to let that slap fall, there will truly be nothing left between us. The air instantly froze. Assistant Chen Mo stood to the side, not daring to even breathe. A storm of rage, mixed with a hesitation he himself hadn't noticed, churned in Shin Yanbai's eyes. Fu Qingyi simply held her face up to meet his gaze, her eyes devoid of any fear, as if waiting for him to sever the last remaining shred of their bond. After a few seconds of tense silence, he finally lowered his hand slowly. His voice was hoarse, his tone resigned, more like he was trying to convince himself. Qingyi, must you be so willful? Are you truly satisfied only after turning this home upside down, turning it upside down? Fu Qingyi repeated the phrase softly, a trace of mockery curling at the corner of her lips. Shin Yanbai, get this straight, I'm not the one who threw this house into chaos. She didn't look at him again, turning instead to head for the stairs. All she wanted now was to return to her bedroom, to wait for the news from over there, to wait for the day the divorce agreement would take effect. But just as she took a step, a choked sob came from behind her. Jiyun's voice was fragile and wounded. Madam, how can you say that? Yanbai and I are truly in love. I never intended to ruin your family, nor force you into anything. Why must you always be so cruel to me? Fu Qingyi's footsteps halted. She turned and saw Jiyun, her eyes rimmed red, tears clinging to her lashes, looking utterly wronged. As expected, Shin Yanbai's brow furrowed deeply. He pulled Jiyun closer, his tone heavy with reproach. Qingyi, did you hear that? Jiyun meant no such thing. It's you who's always held a prejudice against her. Can't you be more gracious and stop assuming the worst of people? Generous. Fu Qingyi found it absurd. Shin Yanbai, you're asking me to be generous to a woman trying to steal my husband. To be generous to the person who wants to use me as a breeding tool. Why don't you ask her to be a little more generous to me? 5. I didn't. Jiyun hurriedly defended herself, her voice choked with emotion. Sister, I truly never intended for you to bear a child for me. That day, Yanbai was just overly worried about me. That's why he said such things. I've already told Yanbai since then, I'm willing to give birth myself, no matter how painful it is. I'm not afraid, I just want to build a home with Yanbai. As she spoke, she reached out, took Shin Yanbai's hand, and placed it on her lower abdomen, her eyes full of longing. Yanbai, you said it yourself, we'll have a lovely baby, right? Shin Yanbai's heart instantly softened, looking down at Jiyun. His gaze was so tender it could melt, completely forgetting Fu Qingyi's presence beside him. Yes, we'll have a baby, we have all the time in the world. Fu Qingyi stood rooted to the spot, watching the deeply affectionate scene before her, feeling only a wave of nausea churning in her stomach. After moving into the Shin family villa, Su Jiyun grew increasingly restless. She was determined to secure her place in high society. To prove she wasn't just a caged canary kept by Shin Yanbai, she meticulously planned a flower-viewing banquet. She invited all the prominent ladies of Beijing's high society, hoping to elevate her own status through this banquet and secure their recognition of her position within the Shin family. On the day of the banquet, the villa's garden was exquisitely decorated. A dazzling array of rare and expensive flowers vied for attention. Jiyun, dressed in a haute couture gown with impeccable makeup and a smile on her face, greeted the arriving guests at the entrance. Yet all her eager anticipation came to nothing. Most of the ladies attending the banquet were Fu Qingyi's childhood friends, and their expressions turned sour at the sight of Su Jiyun. Miss Su, the flowers in this garden are lovely, but they don't quite measure up to the varieties in the Fu family garden from back in the day. Indeed, it all feels a bit lacking in substance now. Su Jiyun's smile froze for a moment. Suppressing her inner fury, she forced a smile and said, you ladies jest. I merely wished to invite everyone over for a bit of lively company. Lively company, we would like that, but with some people acting like a cuckoo laying its egg in another's nest, it's simply too vexing to watch. How could we possibly enjoy ourselves? The ladies spoke one after another, each remark laced with veiled sarcasm directed at Su Jiyun. Su Jiyun could no longer maintain her facade. Her eyes instantly welling up with tears, she turned and ran back into the villa, throwing herself into Shin Yanbai's arms the moment he returned from work, weeping as pitifully as a rain-drenched pear blossom. Yanbai, they bullied me, they all bullied me, Su Zhiyun sobbed, dramatically embellishing the words the ladies had said to her. They even said I'm not as good as Fu Qingyi, that I'm not worthy of being by your side at all. Shin Yanbai frowned as he looked down at the heartbroken Su Zhiyun crying in his arms. He was already harboring resentment over Fu Qingyi's failure to apologize to Su Zhiyun a few days ago. Now, hearing that Su Zhiyun had suffered such a grave injustice, his anger flared up instantly. Shin Yanbai summoned his assistant and ordered, "Go and find a group of young, beautiful women, have each one meticulously dressed up, then deliver them separately to the husbands of Mrs. Li, Mrs. Zhang, and Mrs. Wang. Tell them it's a gift from me." Shin Yanbai, the assistant, was taken aback for a moment, feeling hesitant. Fu Qingyi happened to overhear every word of it. Her face instantly paled. She strode up to Shin Yanbai and said urgently, "Shin Yanbai, you can't do this, those ladies are my friends. They were only speaking up for me because they felt I was wronged. If you go through with this, you won't just ruin their families, you'll drag yourself into a public scandal." Shin Yanbai looked at Fu Qingyi with a cold, reproachful gaze. "Qingyi, you're being very difficult. Zhiyun has suffered a great injustice, and I'm standing up for her. Not only do you fail to understand, but you're siding with outsiders to criticize me. Why can't you just get along with Zhiyun?" Watching Shin Yanbai's complete lack of moral discernment, a wave of cold despair washed over Fu Qingyi's heart. She knew Shin Yanbai was still holding a grudge over her refusal to apologize to Su Zhiyun days earlier, and was now using this opportunity to vent his displeasure. Fu Qingyi took a deep breath, suppressing the bitter anger in her heart. "Shin Yanbai, just what kind of apology do you want from me? As long as you let me go, leave my friends alone, and stop this self-destructive behavior, I'll agree to anything you say." Shin Yanbai hadn't expected Fu Qingyi to give in so easily. He paused for a moment, then reached out to grip her chin. "You want to know how to apologize? It's simple. At my grandfather's 60th birthday celebration, in front of all the guests, you will personally declare that Zhiyun has every right to stay by my side." 6. Fu Qingyi's body went rigid, her jaw aching from the tight grip. She never imagined Shin Yanbai would say such things or make such a demand. "Shin Yanbai, you've gone too far. Qingyi, you'd better think carefully, either do as I say, or your friends and the Fu family's former employees will face the consequences." Fu Qingyi's breath hitched. She knew Shin Yanbai meant what he said. For Su Zhiyun, he would stop at nothing to hurt everyone around her. Fu Qingyi was torn apart by an agonizing inner conflict. Just then, Fu Qingyi's phone suddenly rang. She glanced at the caller ID. It was Shin Yanbai's arch-rival, the one she had done business with before, Gu Zian. Fu Qingyi hesitated for a moment, then stepped aside and answered the call. "Miss Fu, I've pretty much finished looking into the matter." A glimmer of hope lit up Fu Qingyi's eyes. She glanced at Shin Yanbai, who was gently comforting Su Zhiyun not far away, took a deep breath, and said into the phone to Gu Zian, "Mr. Gu, please, make the proper arrangements for me that day." Nightfall enveloped the Shin family villa. Fu Qingyi remained alone in the second-floor storage room. This pile held countless memories of her and Shin Yanbai. From their youth all the way through their marriage, she had moved everything out to the garden and found a brazier. Her fingers brushed over the dust-covered objects, each one once a vessel for what she thought would be forever, now just relics of a past that was gone. She picked up a faded photo album. The cover was a picture of them at an amusement park when they were 18. Back then, Shin Yanbai's eyes were bright and clear, his arm around her as he smiled radiantly. On the back of the photo, written in his fountain pen, were the words, "Qingyi, I want to spend every decade with you." Fu Qingyi's fingers paused over the handwriting for a few seconds before she tossed the album into the brazier without hesitation. The flames instantly licked at the paper, the smiling face in the photo quickly curling and blackening before turning to ash. Beside her was a hand-knitted scarf that was Shin Yanbai's first attempt at knitting. He'd made several clumsy mistakes, and on her birthday, he handed it over with a flushed face. Fu Qingyi had once treasured that scarf like a precious jewel, wearing it every winter, but now, looking at its crooked, uneven stitches, her eyes welled up with tears. She slowly unfurled the scarf and threw it into the brazier. There was also a ring, bought right after they got their marriage certificate back when the Fu family had just gone bankrupt. Shin Yanbai, fearing he couldn't give her enough, bought this rare gemstone at an auction to craft into her wedding ring. The flames in the brazier grew fiercer, casting flickering light and shadow across Fu Qingyi's face. She tossed items into the fire, one after another, the first lipstick he ever gave her, the puzzle they assembled together, and even the hospital bill she had kept from when he donated a kidney. It was the proof she once held that he loved her. what are you doing? A familiar voice called out in alarm. Fu Qingyi turned around and saw Shen Yanbai standing in the doorway. His pupils contracted as he looked at the objects blazing fiercely in the brazier, and he strode forward quickly. Fu Qingyi did not stop her actions, her voice calm. Some things are no longer needed, out of sight, out of mind. Shen Yanbai grabbed her wrist, his tone urgent and tinged with grievance. Qingyi, don't be like this, these are our memories, why burn them? We will always be husband and wife. Su Zhiyun is just a passing guest, she poses no threat to your position, don't be so hard on yourself, just a passing stranger. Shen Yanbai, earlier today, you actually considered sending young women to the homes of Manager Li and Manager Zhang, all because their wives spoke up for me, when you were so ready to destroy other people's families for Su Zhiyun's sake. Did you ever stop to think about the immense harm you'd cause? Shen Yanbai tried to defend himself. I was just speaking in anger. I never truly intended to do that. Speaking in anger. Fu Qingyi let out a soft, derisive laugh. Fu Qingyi no longer wanted to dwell on whether it was just words spoken in anger, or if Shen Yanbai was truly this cold and selfish by nature. The flames in the brazier still danced, casting light on her resolute profile. Shen Yanbai, stop lying to yourself. What was between us was burned to ashes by your own hands long ago. These things are nothing but the final remnants. Seeing her icy demeanor, a wave of panic, unlike anything he'd ever felt before, surged in Shen Yanbai's heart. He wanted to say something, to pull her into his arms and tell her she was still the one he loved most, but the words died on his lips, cut off by a coquettish voice drifting up from downstairs. Yanbai, where are you? My foot hurts so much. I want you to massage it for me. His brow furrowed, and his gaze towards Fu Qingyi held a flicker of hesitation, but in the end, he was defeated by that coquettish plea. Qingyi, I should go check on Zhiyun first. Her foot injury hasn't healed yet. I can't keep her waiting. He sighed and hurried away. Fu Qingyi stood in place, listening as the sound of his footsteps descending the stairs gradually faded away. With Su Zhiyun's occasional laughter drifting in, she lowered her head to look at the flames in the brazier, gradually dying out until only a pile of black ashes remained. She slowly crouched down, pinched a bit of ash between her fingertips, and let out a sigh. 7. The cruise ship's banquet hall blazed with light, casting a luxurious glow over the dark sea. Fu Qingyi sat at the vanity as the makeup artist meticulously adjusted her earrings, softly praising, Madam, you will undoubtedly be the most radiant person at the banquet later. Fu Qingyi offered a faint smile and did not reply. In her heart, she knew this birthday banquet was merely another battlefield. Su Zhiyun would never be content with merely playing a supporting role. Sure enough, no sooner had the words been spoken than the door to the dressing room swung open. Clad in an overly flamboyant strapless dress and teetering on 10-centimeter heels, Su Zhiyun strode directly up to Fu Qingyi. Her eyes were fixed with a predatory glare on the other woman's gown. Fu Qingyi, she demanded imperiously, that dress of yours is quite nice, take it off and give it to me. Fu Qingyi lifted her gaze, her eyes icy. Miss Su, this is my gown, I have no reason to hand it over to anyone else, what's yours or mine? Su Zhiyun reached out to grab Fu Qingyi's skirt. Yanbai said I can use anything from the Shen family as I please, it's just a dress, must you be so stingy? Seeing this, the makeup artist hurriedly stepped in to mediate, still holding the spare jewelry prepared for Su Zhiyun. Miss Su, please don't be upset. Your makeup today has warm undertones, which perfectly complement the red dress you're wearing and really bring out your complexion. Madam's gown has a cooler tone, which would actually detract from your beauty. Her intention was to help defuse the situation, but she hadn't anticipated that Su Zhiyun would refuse the goodwill. Su Zhiyun turned and glared at the makeup artist, her eyes filled with malice. Who do you think you are? How dare you tell me what to do? Before the words had even finished, she raised her hand and slapped the makeup artist hard across the face. Stunned by the blow, the makeup artist covered her face and stumbled back 2 steps. Her eyes instantly welled up with tears, but she dared not make a sound. In the Shen household, with Shen Yanbai backing her, Su Zhiyun was someone the staff simply couldn't afford to cross. Seeing this, Fu Qingyi shot to her feet and seized Su Zhiyun's wrist before she could lower it. Before Su Zhiyun could react, Fu Qingyi swung backhanded, delivering a slap. The sharp crack echoed through the room, even louder than the previous one. Stunned by the blow, Su Zhiyun clutched her burning cheek, staring at Fu Qingyi in disbelief. Her voice rose to a shriek. Fu Qingyi, how dare you hit me? I'll have Yanbai throw you out of the Shen family and make you kneel to apologize. Kneel and apologize. Fu Qingyi released her grip, her tone dripping with scorn. Su Zhiyun, get your bearings. Do you even know where you are? Today is grandfather's 60th birthday. Every guest here is honoring the Shen family's reputation. This makeup artist is the stylist grandfather personally approved. By striking her, You've slapped grandfather's face, you've insulted the entire Shin family." She paused, her gaze sweeping over the relatives who had rushed to the doorway at the commotion. "I hit you today on grandfather's behalf, to teach someone with no manners a lesson, and to uphold the Shin family's dignity. Tell me, who here dares to demand an apology from me for you?" Su Zhiyun's face flushed with alternating shades of pale and livid at her words. She wanted to retort, but found she had no grounds to stand on. She felt the weight of the strange, scrutinizing looks from everyone around her. Indeed, within the Shin family, Fu Qingyi was the lawfully wedded young mistress of the house. Just then, Shin Yanbai hurried over. Seeing Su Zhiyun covering her face and crying, and Fu Qingyi standing coldly to the side, he immediately frowned, his tone reproachful. "Qingyi, what are you fighting with Zhiyun about now? It's grandfather's birthday banquet. Can't you just let her have her way for once?" Su Zhiyun wailed as if her heart were breaking. "Yanbai, look, she hit me, and she said I was disrespecting grandfather, but I wasn't, I just wanted a dress. How could she do this to me?" Shin Yanbai patted her back to soothe her, then looked up at Fu Qingyi, his eyes full of disappointment. "Qingyi, I know you're upset, but Zhiyun is young, how could you hit her? Apologize to her right now." Fu Qingyi let out a cold laugh and pointed at the makeup artist, who was still holding her face. "Shin Yanbai, you should first ask Su Zhiyun why she got hit. She struck the person grandfather invited first. I was just teaching her a lesson on grandfather's behalf. What's wrong with that? If you want my apology, fine. First, make Su Zhiyun apologize to the makeup artist, then have her kowtow 3 times to grandfather to atone for the disgrace she brought upon the Shin family today. You're being completely unreasonable." Shin Yanbai snapped angrily. "I'm being unreasonable." Fu Qingyi took out her phone and activated the recording function. "I've recorded everything you just said. If you think I'm in the wrong, let's go find grandfather right now and settle this. We'll let all the guests hear how the woman you, Shin Yanbai, are protecting, made a scene at grandfather's birthday banquet, assaulted his people, and shamed the Shin family." Shin Yanbai's confidence instantly evaporated. He knew that if this really blew up in front of grandfather today, no one would come out of it unscathed. He took a deep breath, suppressing his anger, and softened his tone. "All right, it's the birthday banquet today. Let's not make a scene. Zhiyun, you apologize to the makeup artist first, and we'll let this go." Su Zhiyun stared at Shin Yanbai in disbelief. "Yanbai, you want me to apologize to her? I'm the one Fu Qingyi hit. Apologize." Seeing the impatience in his eyes, Su Zhiyun knew that making more of a fuss would only anger him further. She could only grit her teeth and reluctantly mutter an apology to the makeup artist. Fu Qingyi didn't press the matter further. She turned and sat back down at the vanity, saying to the makeup artist, "Let's continue. We mustn't delay the start of the birthday banquet." The makeup artist nodded hastily, though her hand still trembled slightly. Noticing this, Fu Qingyi softly said, "You've worked hard," and handed her a tissue. The makeup artist took the tissue, her eyes growing even redder. Su Zhiyun stood to the side, watching Fu Qingyi with a fury that made her teeth itch, yet she was utterly powerless. She knew she had lost this round today, but she would never let it end here. What Fu Qingyi owed her, she would one day reclaim with interest. Inside the cruise ship's banquet hall, the music for the birthday celebration flowed, and guests mingled, their glasses clinking. Old Master Shen, looking hale and hearty, sat at the head table. His gaze swept over the room full of guests before finally settling on Fu Qingyi, who had just entered. He immediately beckoned, his voice gentle. "Qingyi, come over here to your grandpa." Fu Qingyi hurried forward. The moment she reached the table, Old Master Shen reached out and took her hand. "Lately, Yanbai hasn't been thinking straight. He's been acting foolishly and making you suffer." Fu Qingyi felt a warmth in her heart, tinged with bitterness. Just as she was about to speak, the old master continued, "But you must understand, the one he has always loved most in his heart is you. Back when the Fu family was in trouble, he didn't hesitate to donate a kidney to save your father. That kind of devotion isn't something to be taken lightly. Young people are bound to make mistakes. Be patient with him. Once he comes to his senses, he'll realize who truly has his best interests at heart." Fu Qingyi's hand, hanging by her side, tightened slightly. Her heart filled with confusion. Shin Yanbai had already placed Su Zhiyun on a pedestal. He was even willing to force her into being a breeding tool for Su Zhiyun and to destroy her friend's family. So why would Grandpa still say that she was the one he loved most? Seeing the hopeful look in the old man's eyes and remembering it was his 60th birthday, Fu Qingyi swallowed the words on the tip of her tongue. She forced a gentle smile and said, "Grandfather, I understand." Yanbai was just confused for a moment. "I'll talk to him properly. We'll be fine, don't worry." The old man nodded in satisfaction and patted the back of her hand. "That's my good granddaughter-in-law." Just then, Su Zhiyun walked over, swaying her hips, a glass of red wine in hand. She had deliberately touched up her makeup and changed into a more figure-hugging silver slip dress, hoping to salvage some dignity at the birthday banquet. Approaching the old master, she offered a saccharine smile. "Grandfather Shen. May your fortune be as boundless as the eastern sea and your longevity as enduring as the southern mountains." Yet, old Master Shen didn't even lift an eyelid. His gaze remained fixed on Fu Qingyi, as if she were invisible. The looks from the surrounding guests instantly turned knowing. Some lowered their heads to whisper, while others wore mocking smiles. Everyone was well aware of Su Zhiyun's status. The old master's attitude made it abundantly clear he did not acknowledge her. Su Zhiyun's hand, holding the wine glass, froze mid-air, her face flushed and paled in turns, mortified enough to wish the floor would swallow her whole. She shot a venomous glare at Fu Qingyi, who stood beside the old master, basking in the crowd's attention. To her, Fu Qingyi's composed demeanor felt like a deliberate mockery. The birthday banquet proceeded in an orderly fashion. Guests took turns stepping forward to offer their congratulations to old Master Shen, creating a scene of great festivity. After accompanying the old master through several rounds of guests, Fu Qingyi felt a tightness in her chest. Using the need for fresh air as an excuse, she made her way alone to the deck. The sea breeze, carrying the briny dampness of the ocean, swept over her, scattering the clamor and easing the tension in Fu Qingyi's nerves. The sound of high heels clicking on the deck came from behind. Without turning around, Fu Qingyi knew Su Zhiyun had followed her. "Fu Qingyi, are you feeling smug?" Su Zhiyun's voice was thick with jealousy. "With grandfather shielding you, you think you'll always be Mrs. Shen, always one step ahead of me." Fu Qingyi couldn't be bothered to engage with her and turned to leave, but Su Zhiyun swiftly stepped forward, blocking her path, her gaze fixed intently on the ruby necklace around Fu Qingyi's neck. It was a pigeon's blood ruby necklace, its facets catching and refracting the moonlight. "Give me the necklace," Su Zhiyun demanded, her eyes gleaming with greed as she reached out to snatch it. "It's wasted on you. Only I am worthy of it." Fu Qingyi recoiled sharply, evading her grasp. Her fingers instinctively flew to shield the necklace, her eyes filled with wariness. "Don't you dare touch it with your filthy hands. My father gave this to my mother. They're both gone now, and this necklace is the only keepsake they left behind. No one is taking it from me." This necklace held all her memories of her parents. It was the most tender, and the most fiercely guarded part of her heart. So what if it's a memento? Su Zhiyun, infuriated by her defiance, took a step forward, her tone belligerent. "Everything in the Shen household is mine now, so what's yours is mine too. If you know what's good for you, you'll take it off and hand it over yourself, before I make you." With that, she lunged forward, her hands clamping like vices around Fu Qingyi's wrists as she tried to wrench the necklace away. The chain bit painfully into Fu Qingyi's neck, the sharp edges of the gemstones pressing into her skin and leaving angry red marks. Fu Qingyi struggled desperately, but Su Zhiyun's grip was too strong, her fingers digging into her wrist with a pain that brought tears to her eyes. "Let go, Su Zhiyun, don't you dare go too far," Fu Qingyi snarled through gritted teeth, trying to shove her away, but Su Zhiyun didn't release her. Instead, she became even more frenzied watching Fu Qingyi protect the necklace, and recalling the cold shoulder she received in the banquet hall along with old Master Shen's blatant favoritism towards Fu Qingyi. A surge of intense hatred welled up from the depths of her heart. As long as Fu Qingyi remained, she would never win Shen Yanbai's love or attain the status she so desperately craved. Perhaps it would be better if Fu Qingyi simply vanished forever. 9. Once the thought surfaced, it became impossible to suppress. From the corner of her eye, Su Zhiyun saw the deck's edge had no railing. The sea below was pitch black, a void that seemed capable of swallowing everything. She took a deep breath, mustered all her strength, and in the moment Fu Qingyi was struggling, thrust out her hand and shoved Fu Qingyi hard in the back. Taken completely by surprise, Fu Qingyi toppled backward just as she was about to plunge into the sea. A flicker in the corner of her eye caught sight of distant guests and Shen Yanbai walking toward the deck. She reached out and desperately clutched at Su Zhiyun's skirt. "Ah!" Su Zhiyun, caught off guard by the sudden grab, lost her balance and was pulled forward by Fu Qingyi's momentum. Two splashes sounded almost simultaneously as the frigid seawater swallowed them both in an instant. Fu Qingyi couldn't swim, the icy water flooded her nostrils, and a bone-chilling cold seeped into her body, threatening to steal her consciousness. Qingyi, seeing them fall, Shen Yanbai immediately shrugged off his suit jacket and plunged into the sea without hesitation, swimming urgently toward them. Amidst the chaos, Fu Qingyi saw Shen Yanbai swimming toward her, and a faint glimmer of hope stirred in her heart. Perhaps, deep down, he still cared for her. Perhaps he still remembered their shared past. But just as Shen Yanbai was about to reach her, Su Zhiyun, struggling beside them, stretched out a hand. "Yanbai, don't forget." Don't forget what the Fu family did back then. The rest of his words were swallowed by the crashing waves, lost to Fu Qingyi, yet. Shen Yanbai's body went rigid in an instant. His hand, which had been reaching out for Fu Qingyi, froze mid-air. He glanced back at Su Zhiyun struggling in the water, then turned to give Fu Qingyi one last, profound look. The look in his eyes was so complex, so inscrutable, that Fu Qingyi couldn't begin to decipher it. The next second, Shen Yanbai abruptly changed course, swimming fiercely towards Su Zhiyun. He pulled her into his arms, his voice urgent with reassurance. Zhiyun, don't be afraid. I'm here, I'll get you out. As Fu Qingyi watched his retreating figure, the last shred of hope in her heart shattered completely, frozen solid like ice in the sea. Just then, the assistant and several guests who could swim also jumped in. One of them swam toward Fu Qingyi, reaching out a hand. Madam, grab my hand, let me help you up. But Fu Qingyi only shook her head slowly. Her eyes followed Shen Yanbai as he carried Su Zhiyun, swimming step by step toward the yacht, leaning into Shen Yanbai's embrace. Su Zhiyun still found the time to glance back and shoot her a triumphant look. Enough, that's quite enough. She was tired of fighting, and tired of waiting. Fu Qingyi gently pushed away the hands of the guests who rushed to her aid, and let her body slowly fall backwards. The frigid seawater dragged her body down, her consciousness fading. She seemed to see her parents' smiling faces, beckoning to her from within a warm, radiant light. Mom, Dad. Fu Qingyi closed her eyes, letting her body sink into the pitch-black depths without a struggle. After bringing Su Zhiyun onto the yacht, Shen Yanbai, frantic with worry, was about to dive back in to search for Fu Qingyi. Seeing this, Su Zhiyun wept bitterly, her hands clutching Shen Yanbai's arm with a death grip, her fingernails nearly digging into his flesh. Yanbai, you can't go. Don't forget what Fu Qingyi did to me. She did this on purpose today. She wanted me dead. Shen Yanbai's steps faltered. Fu Qingyi was his beloved, yet now, he had personally driven her into such a desperate corner. Fire seemed to be burning in Shen Yanbai's chest. His hands trembled as he pried Su Zhiyun's fingers loose. Yanbai, if you go down there, what will become of me? She nearly killed me. How can you be so cruel as to abandon me now? Have you truly forgotten what Fu Qingyi did? Have you forgotten how the Fu family ruined me? Su Zhiyun clung tightly to Shen Yanbai. Shen Yanbai's breathing grew ragged. He lowered his head to look at Su Zhiyun and shook it. Qingyi's life is what matters most. He was plagued by 1,000 worries. Fearing that what Su Zhiyun spoke of would tarnish Qingyi's reputation, he had agonized over it for so long, and now, he could only watch helplessly as the woman he loved plunged into the sea. Without another glance at Su Zhiyun, he leaped without hesitation back into the icy, bone-chilling seawater. The helicopter rescue team swept over the sea's surface, commencing their search. Shen Yanbai's heart was filled with dread. Find Fu Qingyi. We must find her. He scanned his surroundings, and each time he spotted a dark silhouette, a flicker of hope surged within him. But upon realizing it wasn't Qingyi, that hope was instantly extinguished, drowned by an even deeper despair. The rescue operation lasted the entire night. Shen Yanbai swam in the sea until he was utterly exhausted, his lips turning purple from the cold, his body beginning to tremble uncontrollably. Yet, as dawn broke, there was still no sign of her. Fu Qingyi seemed to have vanished into thin air. Lost in the vast, endless sea. Old Master Shen looked at the utterly exhausted, hollow-eyed Shen Yanbai, trembling with rage. He raised a shaking hand to point accusingly at him, his voice quivering as he roared, "Look what you've done. See what you've made of this family. If anything happens to Qingyi, I will never forgive you." Shen Yanbai stood there dumbly, shaking his head and muttering to himself, "Qingyi will be fine. She has to be." 10. Fu Qingyi's eyes snapped open, and she was seized by a fit of violent coughing. Warm, yellow light filled her vision, driving away much of the chill that had gripped her body. "You're awake." Fu Qingyi turned her head and saw Gu Ziyan seated in an armchair, a document held between his fingers, his gaze resting calmly upon her. His cuffs were rolled up, revealing a Patek Philippe watch on his wrist. An air of authority, composed yet aloof, emanated from him, a stark contrast to Shen Yanbai's flamboyance. Seeing that Fu Qingyi remained silent, Gu Ziyan rose and walked to the bedside, offering her the glass in his hand. "Have some water first. Take it easy." Fu Qingyi propped up her frail body to sit, every movement pulling at a fresh wave of pain. She took the glass of water, the warm liquid slid down her throat, finally quelling that suffocating sense of dread. "Thank you." Gu Ziyan leaned against the foot of the bed, his gaze sweeping over the flawless pigeon blood ruby necklace resting at her throat. "When she fell into the water last night, she had protected it with everything she had, as per your earlier instructions. Everything is proceeding smoothly." Fu Qingyi recalled the argument on the deck last night. It was fortunate she had made preparations in advance, otherwise, they would have been doomed in the vast, open sea. "What about Shen Yanbai?" She paused. "Any news?" Guzian raised an eyebrow, pulled out his phone, and brought up a news article to show her. The headline read, Shin Group President Shin Yenbai plunges into sea to rescue lover, overnight search yields no results. In the accompanying photo, Shin Yenbai, wearing a soaked shirt, stared vacantly at the sea. Guzian sneered, Shin Yenbai probably still thinks you're lying at the bottom of the ocean. The Shin family villa is in complete chaos. Old Master Shin flew into a rage and gave him a thorough dressing down. Su Zhiyun has quieted down a bit, hiding in her room and playing the victim. And one more thing, he changed tack. What you asked for. I've taken care of it. Fu Qingyi looked up, her eyes lighting up. Her deal with Guzian was about more than just a divorce. She would make Shin Yenbai pay for his betrayal, ruin Su Zhiyun's reputation, and reclaim everything that rightfully belonged to the Fu family. I've had someone compile the evidence chain regarding the financial discrepancies at Shin Corporation's overseas branch. It's ready to be submitted to the regulators at any moment, Guzian stated with conviction. Just give the word, and Shin Corp stock will plummet by at least 30% within 3 days. The Fu family's foothold in the business world back then was built on their overseas market strategy, a lesson her father had personally taught her. 30% isn't enough. Leave the overseas matters to me. The head of the Shin Group's overseas branch is an old subordinate who worked under my father. I have a way to get him to switch sides. Furthermore, the Fu family still has some old contacts in Europe and North America. If I make an appearance, they'll be willing to help me. Guzian gave her a somewhat surprised look, then understanding dawned. Alright, that works. It's more secure if you handle it personally. If you need any resources, just tell me directly. You can use the Gu family's channels freely. Fu Qingyi nodded, finished the water in her glass, and placed it on the nightstand. She pushed back the covers and tried to get out of bed, but her legs, weakened from the long hours spent in the seawater, gave way beneath her, nearly sending her tumbling to the floor. Guzian steadied her, his fingertips brushing against the cool skin of her arm before he quickly withdrew his hand. You just woke up. Your body hasn't recovered yet. Rest here properly for a couple of days. I've already had new clothes and daily necessities prepared for you. If you need anything, just call for the maid. Fu Qingyi steadied herself and looked at Guzian. Thank you, Mr. Gu. No need for thanks, Guzian said flatly. We are business partners. If you win, I get what I want. I've had my eye on the Shin Group's new energy slice of the pie for a very long time. His frankness, devoid of any pretense, actually put Fu Qingyi's mind at ease. She knew Guzian was no philanthropist. Their partnership was one of mutual benefit, but at the very least, when it came to dealing with Shin Yenbai, their goals were aligned. Guzian didn't linger any longer. He turned to leave, but paused at the doorway and looked back at Fu Qingyi. By the way, he said, Shin Yenbai spent all last night searching for you in the sea. He was eventually rescued after exhaustion set in and is now running a high fever. Fu Qingyi's body stiffened for a moment. That has nothing to do with me, she said flatly. Guzian fell silent and gently closed the door. The room returned to quiet as Fu Qingyi walked to the window and drew back the heavy curtains. Outside lay a lawn, and in the distance, a lake. She raised her hand to touch the necklace at her throat. The cool gemstone served as a reminder that everything was starting anew. 11. The private jet touched down smoothly in London. The villa Guzian had arranged for her was located in central London. During these 2 days of rest, she paid no further attention to any news from back home. She was determined to dismantle Shin Yenbai's prized business empire. She swiftly hired investigators to uncover the financial discrepancies in Shin Group's European operations over the past 3 years, as well as evidence of Shin Yenbai misappropriating resources from the Fu family's old guard. For the next 2 weeks, Fu Qingyi became a frequent flyer, shuttling between office buildings in London, Paris, and New York. A graduate of a prestigious business school, she had always been adept at handling overseas affairs, having cut her teeth assisting her father. The old associates who owed her father favors almost unconditionally rallied to her side. First, the technical director of Shin Corporation's North American division defected to Guzian's new energy company, taking the entire core R&D team with him. Then, he quietly poached 3 long-term major clients from the European region for his newly registered company. Every move Fu Qingyi made was precise, decisive, and ruthless. It wasn't until Shin Group's quarterly financial report showed a cliff-like decline that the domestic headquarters finally realized something was seriously wrong with their overseas operations. Meanwhile, Shin Yenbai was still consumed by the agony of being unable to find Fu Qingyi. In the study of the Shin family villa, the curtains were drawn tightly shut. Empty liquor bottles were scattered across the floor. Shin Yenbai sat at the desk, the computer screen before him displaying the reward notice he had personally drafted, a reward of 10 million for anyone who provides a credible lead on Fu Qingyi's whereabouts. The notice had been posted across major platforms for a long time, yet every tip received was fraudulent. Some even tried to claim the reward using old photos from years ago. He raised a hand to massage his throbbing temples, as images of Fu Qingyi flashed relentlessly before his eyes, her bloodshot eyes on the operating table, her resolute profile beside the brazier, her utter despair on the deck before the sea swallowed her. Every single scene tormented him beyond endurance ever since he was rescued from the sea that day. Even his dreams were filled with Fu Qingyi calling his name from the icy water. He would reach out to grab her, but his hands closed on nothing. Qingyi, where on earth are you? Shen Yanbai picked up the photo frame on the table. Inside was a picture from the day they got their marriage certificate. Fu Qingyi was smiling, her eyes curved like crescents, as radiant as spring. His eyes instantly reddened. I was wrong. Please come back. I'll send Zhiyun away, and we can start over. Okay. The study door was gently knocked, and Su Zhiyun entered, carrying a bowl of bird's nest soup. She was wearing the white nightgown Shen Yanbai used to love most, her hair smooth and draped over her shoulders, her face full of ingratiation. Shen Yanbai's state these past few days had her deeply unsettled. Yanbai, you haven't eaten all day, have some bird's nest soup. Su Zhiyun walked over to the desk. Don't worry too much about the bounty either. Sister Qingyi is so clever, maybe she just wants to hide away for some peace and quiet. She might come back in a while. She thought her words might calm Shen Yanbai down, but she didn't expect him to suddenly look up, his face full of fury. Get out. Su Zhiyun was startled by his reaction, nearly dropping the bowl of bird's nest soup in her hand. Her eyes instantly welled up with tears, her voice trembling with hurt. Yanbai, I was just worried about you, worried about me. Shen Yanbai let out a cold laugh, rising to his feet and closing in on her step by step. If you were truly worried about me, you wouldn't have pushed her on the deck. Su Zhiyun, haven't I given you enough? Why must you hurt Qingyi? His gaze was as if he wanted to devour her whole. Su Zhiyun fought back her fear, tears streaming down her face. Yanbai, it wasn't me. She was the one who grabbed me first. I didn't push her. Enough. Shen Yanbai suddenly waved his hand, knocking the bowl of bird's nest soup from Su Zhiyun's grasp. The porcelain bowl hit the floor and shattered into pieces. I don't want to see you again. Get out. Su Zhiyun's heart sank like a stone. She refused to accept it. She had clawed her way up from the bottom with so much effort, and Shen Yanbai was her lifeline. She couldn't just give up now. If she relented, she would never get another chance to turn things around. Yanbai, have you forgotten? Have you forgotten how Fu Qingyi used to bully me? You said it yourself. You promised to make it up to me. The air in the study instantly turned frigid, leaving only the sound of Su Zhiyun's muffled sobs. His entire body trembled uncontrollably. At that time, Fu Qingyi was still consumed by grief over the sudden loss of her parents and younger brother, shutting herself in her room all day. His heart ached for her, yet he didn't know how to comfort her. He could only stand guard outside her door every day, talking to her through the wooden panel. That day, he went out for a business dinner, never suspecting that his drink had been spiked. In a daze, he only remembered someone helping him into the hotel room. When he woke up again, Su Zhiyun was lying beside him. His mind was filled with Fu Qingyi's face. All he wanted was to bury this incident as quickly as possible, but Su Zhiyun kept crying, saying she had been tricked by a friend, that her innocence was gone, and that she could no longer face the world. Just as he was at a complete loss, Su Zhiyun suddenly caught sight of his phone on the nightstand. The screen lit up, showing a photo of him and Fu Qingyi together. Su Zhiyun's sobbing suddenly stopped. She looked up, her eyes red-rimmed. Mr. Shen, you and Miss Fu, you're very close, aren't you? 12. He didn't think much of it at the time, only feeling a pang of guilt as he gave a vague, non-committal reply. But the very next moment, Su Zhiyun pulled up a few photos from her phone's album. In the photo, Fu Qingyi was wearing her high school uniform, standing in front of the school building, surrounded by a few girls. In the corner, with her head bowed and her uniform collar pulled askew, was Su Zhiyun. Look, Fu Qingyi always bullied me back in school. Now that her family is in trouble, if she finds out about what happened between you and me, she might think I'm deliberately getting back at her. His mind went blank with a sudden buzz. With the Fu family's downfall, Fu Qingyi was already having a hard enough time. If she were to be branded as a school bully on top of that, who knows how the gossip mongers in the Beijing social circle, just waiting for a spectacle, would smear her name. He didn't dare to take that risk, much less let Fu Qingyi suffer any more distress. Su Zhiyun seemed to see right through him and cried even harder. I know Miss Fu is having a hard time right now, and I don't want to cause her any trouble, but what am I supposed to do? If my parents find out, they'll kill me. Looking at Su Zhiyun's pitiful expression, he steeled his heart and uttered the words he would later come to deeply regret. Don't worry, I'll take responsibility for this. Whatever you want, I'll give it to you. Consider it my Compensation to you. He thought Su Zhiyun just wanted some money, or a stable job, but no one could have predicted how things would turn out. Yanbai, think about it. Su Zhiyun cautiously tugged at his sleeve, her voice tinged with grievance. You were the one who said you wanted to make it up to me. I've been with you all this time, never asking for anything unreasonable. I just wanted to stay by your side. Fu Qingyi has it all, your love. The title of the Shen family's young mistress, but me. I only have you. Besides, since no one has found her body, it proves she must still be alive. Shen Yanbai tightly closed his eyes. Get out, he said, utterly drained. I need to be alone. Seeing this, Su Zhiyun swallowed her words. She knew she couldn't push too hard now, or it would backfire. She let go, gently wiped her tears, and turned to leave the study. In the study, Shen Yanbai picked up the empty bottle, wanting another drink, only to find it was already drained. He tossed the bottle aside in frustration, his gaze falling on the photo frame on the table. In the photo, Fu Qingyi was smiling so sweetly, but where was she now? Qingyi, I'm sorry, I was wrong, I was truly wrong. He remembered how she had clutched the necklace desperately before being pushed into the sea. It was a keepsake from Qingyi's mother, something she treasured deeply, yet she had nearly lost her life for it. He pulled out his phone, his fingers trembling as he opened the contacts, found Qingyi's number, and pressed the call button. From the receiver came the same cold, automated female voice. He dialed the number over and over until his phone died, then slumped to the floor in despair. Meanwhile, in a London villa, Fu Qingyi had just finished a video conference with an old subordinate from the company. On the other side of the screen was her father's most trusted deputy from back in the day. Don't worry, miss, Shen Yanbai's operations in France over the past few years are full of holes. I've compiled the evidence and can send it to you at any time. Old Zhou's voice was thick with emotion. Boss Fu treated us well back in the day. We've been waiting for the day you'd return. Fu Qingyi nodded. Thank you, Uncle Zhou. But there's no need to rush. We'll take it step by step and slowly draw in the net. After ending the video call, she walked to the window and gazed out at the morning light. Her phone rang just then. It was a message from Guzian. Shen Group stock opened down 5% this morning. The shareholders are already questioning Shen Yanbai's decisions. Should I turn up the heat? Fu Qingyi looked at the message and replied with just 2 words. No need. It's not the right time yet. In the deep autumn of Jing City, an art auction was underway at the art center. A crowd had gathered before the oil painting hanging in the center of the exhibition hall. It was the last unpublished work of Fu Qingyi's mother, completed during her lifetime. Shen Yanbai sat in the front row of the VIP section. Ever since Fu Qingyi fell into the sea, he had been frantically searching for anything connected to her. When he learned this painting was going up for auction, only one thought consumed him. It must be his. This was all he had left to hold on to of Fu Qingyi. Su Zhiyun, however, had no mind for the items on the auction block. Next, let's give a round of applause for the grand finale of tonight's auction. The starting bid is 5 million, with minimum increments of 500,000. As the auctioneer's voice faded, a bidder in the audience immediately raised their paddle. 5,500,000, 6 million, 7 million. The price kept soaring and soon broke through the 10 million mark. Shen Yanbai's expression remained unchanged. When the bidding reached 12 million, he slowly raised his paddle. 20 million. The entire hall fell silent instantly, with all eyes turning toward him. 20 million for a posthumous work by a non-top-tier master was far beyond the painting's intrinsic value. Anyone could see that Shen Yanbai was determined to secure his mother-in-law's artwork. Just as the auctioneer was about to bring down the gavel, a low voice suddenly came from the direction of the VIP box on the second floor. I, light the sky lantern. 13. Everyone looked up toward the second floor and saw Guzian. His gaze was cold and detached as he looked at Shen Yanbai, a faint, almost imperceptible sneer playing at the corner of his mouth. Shen Yanbai shot to his feet, his face ashen with fury. He never expected Guzian to suddenly throw a wrench in the works. He took a deep breath, suppressing the anger in his heart, and strode quickly toward the private room on the second floor. Seeing this, Su Zhiyun hurriedly followed, a vague sense of foreboding stirring within her. Seeing Shen Yanbai enter, he asked in a flat tone, Mr. Shen, is there something you need? Guzian. Shen Yanbai walked up to him, his tone pleading. This painting is my late mother-in-law's final work. It means the world to me. Could you possibly let me have it? I'll agree to any condition you name. Guzian let out a light chuckle. President Shen, at an auction, the highest bidder wins. I've already lit the sky lantern. There's no backing out now. What sense would it make to just hand it over? He paused, a hint of mockery entering his gaze. What's more, this painting is just as important to me. I intend to give it to my benefactor. Benefactor? Shen Yanbai was taken aback, his brow furrowing. Could it be, your benefactor knew my mother-in-law? Gu Ziyan didn't answer directly, only remarking coolly, President Shen will find out one day. His gaze passed over Shen Yanbai and landed on Su Zhiyun at the door, his tone suddenly turning playful. Speaking of which, Miss Su, we do have some history. Back in school, weren't you the one who loved to corner people in the alleys near campus, playing the little delinquent, bullying classmates left and right? Who would have thought you'd look so delicate now? Su Zhiyun's face turned deathly pale. She stared fixedly at Gu Ziyan, her mind racing through memories, yet she couldn't for the life of her recall where she had seen him before. She forced a calm facade. President Gu, you must have mistaken me for someone else. I was a good girl in school. I never did anything like that. Wrong person. Gu Ziyan raised an eyebrow, pulling up an old photo on his phone and holding it out to Su Zhiyun. In our second year of high school, you and a few other girls cornered a girl in the alley behind Third High. You pinned her against the wall, stole her wallet, and smashed her drawing board to pieces. Have you forgotten? The scene in the photo was blurry, but it clearly showed several girls surrounding a frail figure. The girl at the front, wearing a school uniform, had eyes and brows identical to Su Zhiyun's now. Su Zhiyun's body began to tremble. She had indeed done such a thing, but she thought everyone had long since forgotten. Just then, the private room door was pushed open again. A girl walked in, and her face instantly darkened upon seeing Su Zhiyun. Sis, is that her? The girl is Gu Ziyan's younger sister, Gu Xingwan, who is 5 years his junior. She strode up to Su Zhiyun and demanded sharply, Su Zhiyun, do you remember me? I'm the girl from our sophomore year of high school, the one whose wallet you stole and whose drawing board you smashed. If Fu Qingyi hadn't saved me back then, I swear you would have driven me to my grave. The color drained completely from Su Zhiyun's face. It finally dawned on her. The girl she had bullied all those years ago did bear a resemblance to Gu Xingwan in the eyes and brows, but she never could have imagined that the plain, unremarkable girl was actually Gu Ziyan's sister. Shen Yanbai stood to the side, listening to their conversation, feeling as if he'd been struck by lightning. Su Zhiyun's claims of being bullied by Fu Qingyi were all lies. The real bully was Su Zhiyun herself. He remembered how he had doubted Fu Qingyi because of Su Zhiyun, and had even hurt Fu Qingyi for her sake. A wave of remorse washed over him. Gu Ziyan watched the farce unfold before him, a cold sneer curling at the corner of his mouth. Mr. Shen, now you see the true nature of the person you've been protecting all this time, don't you? Shen Yanbai stood frozen in place, his gaze shifting from Gu Ziyan to Su Zhiyun, who lay collapsed on the floor. Gu Ziyan paid him no further mind. Turning to Gu Xingwan, he said, Wan. Let's go. We shouldn't let irrelevant people taint our sight. After the two of them left, only Shen Yanbai and Su Zhiyun remained in the private room. Su Zhiyun scrambled to her feet, clutching at Shen Yanbai's trouser leg as she pleaded through her tears. Yanbai, I was wrong. I didn't mean to deceive you. I just wanted so desperately to stay by your side. Please, forgive me. Shen Yanbai looked at her expression, and the last shred of pity in his heart vanished. He violently shook off her hand, his tone icy. Su Zhiyun, we're through. You will pay for the things you've done. 14. Outside the education center in the suburbs of the capital, a car slowly came to a stop behind the iron fence. Several girls in identical uniforms were bent over, sweeping the courtyard with vacant, numb expressions in their eyes. This was a reform institution specifically for those with severe behavioral deviations. Once you were sent here, you could never leave unless your guardian consented. Su Zhiyun was being dragged by 2 staff members, her arms pinned. She clung desperately to the car door, her face streaked with tears and snot. Yanbai, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have lied to you. I'll never do it again. Please don't send me in there. Her wails were piercing and mournful. Shen Yanbai lowered his gaze, looking at the disheveled woman with nothing but utter disgust in his eyes. All that remained in his heart was a towering, all-consuming rage. Wrong. Shen Yanbai slowly crouched down, his voice low and heavy. He raised his hand and grasped Su Zhiyun's wrist, the very hand that had torn Fu Qingyi's necklace. You lied to me, claiming Qingyi was bullying you. Did you ever consider you were in the wrong when you pushed Qingyi off the deck into the sea? Did you ever think you were at fault? Su Zhiyun trembled all over, stammering in her defense. I lost my head for a moment. Yanbai, I can change, I swear. Please, give me another chance. Before she could finish, a sharp, sickening crack echoed through the air, followed by Su Zhiyun's blood-curdling scream. Shen Yanbai had snapped 2 of her fingers. Su Zhiyun writhed on the ground in agony, her clothes soaked through with cold sweat. Shen Yanbai stood up and wiped his hands with a handkerchief. His voice was icy. This is what you owe Qingyi. Don't worry, I will come to get you out. Once I find Qingyi, I will personally deliver you to her so you can atone for your sins. Until then, you will stay here and reform yourself. Think hard about where you went wrong. With that, he turned and left. The staff immediately stepped forward, dragging the crying and struggling Su Zhuyun into the education center. Shin Yanbai's mind kept replaying Gu Ziyan's words from the auction. He was growing increasingly convinced that Fu Qingyi wasn't dead, and that the benefactor Gu Ziyan mentioned might very well be Qingyi. Just then, his assistant's call came through. Voice frantic, "Mr. Shen, we have a problem. There's an issue with our European energy subsidiary. A newly registered company is launching a hostile takeover of our shares. They've already secured 15% and are continuing to buy more." Shin Yanbai's eyes snapped open. "Have you identified who's behind this? Who's pulling the strings?" "We can't find any concrete information for now. Their funding sources are very well concealed, and the registration details are anonymous." However, the assistant paused, his tone hesitant. "Their Manda strategy, it strongly resembles the approach from that European energy sector acquisition case you mentioned to us before, the one Ms. Fu worked on during her university years. It's the same playbook, starting with the supply chain and then gradually penetrating the core business." Fu Qingyi. Shin Yanbai's heart gave a sudden, hard thump. That was the case Qingyi had excitedly shared with him during her junior year, holding up the proposal. She said the approach was risky, but it could minimize the acquisition cost to the greatest extent. Could it be that the other party is really Qingyi? Shin Yanbai's breathing grew rapid. He immediately said to his assistant, "Contact them right now. Tell them I want to meet their legal representative in person to discuss the specifics of the acquisition deal. Make it clear that I'm willing to make concessions, but I must meet the legal representative in person, otherwise, there's no deal." He wanted to confirm with his own eyes whether the person pulling the strings behind the scenes was really Fu Qingyi, the one he had been longing for day and night. Meanwhile, in a London villa, Fu Qingyi was reviewing the acquisition progress report in her hands. The European energy subsidiary was one of the Shin Group's core businesses and the key industry through which the Fu family was absorbed by the Shin conglomerate years ago. "We've received a reply," Gu Ziyan said as he entered the study, handing a document to Fu Qingyi. "Shin Yanbai insists on meeting the legal representative in person, or he won't proceed with negotiations." He must have sensed something. Fu Qingyi took the file, flipped through a few pages, and a cold smile curled at the corner of her mouth. "Shin Yanbai really isn't stupid. Do you want to go?" Gu Ziyan asked with concern. "If you don't want to see him, I can go in your place." "No need, I'll go myself. I have to face him eventually. Besides, the Shin Yanbai of today poses no threat to me whatsoever." She would stand before Shin Yanbai herself. She would make him watch as he paid the price for his betrayal. Gu Ziyan nodded. "All right, I'll go with you to ensure your safety." Fu Qingyi nodded, placing the documents on the table. "Thank you. Also, tell Uncle Zhou to have all the evidence ready. If Shin Yanbai doesn't cooperate during the negotiation, we'll directly expose his evidence of embezzling the Fu family's resources and falsifying accounts, leaving him with no way out." "No problem." On the day of the negotiation, the atmosphere in the conference room was tense. Shin Yanbai sat at the head of the table, his eyes filled with a mixture of anticipation and unease. He kept glancing towards the door, hoping to catch a glimpse of the figure who had been haunting his thoughts. 15. The conference room door swung open, and Gu Ziyan strode in first, dressed in a black suit. His presence instantly dominated the room. Shin Yanbai's gaze swept past him and landed on the woman behind him. His entire body froze. Her hair was elegantly swept up, revealing a slender neck adorned with that familiar pigeon blood ruby necklace. It was Fu Qingyi, the woman he had been longing for day and night. "Qingyi." Shin Yanbai's voice trembled. He abruptly stood up, wanting to step forward, but was blocked by Gu Ziyan. Gu Ziyan stepped in front of Fu Qingyi, his gaze icy. "Mr. Shen, mind the occasion. We're here to discuss the merger, not to reminisce about old times." Fu Qingyi walked to the other end of the conference table and sat down, sliding a document in front of Shin Yanbai. Her tone flat. "Mr. Shen, this is our merger proposal. You can take a look. If you have no objections, we can proceed to sign. If you do, we can continue to discuss." Slowly, however, "I must remind you, our time is limited. Furthermore, we have some sensitive information regarding the Shin Group. It would be in your best interest to cooperate if you don't want it made public." Shin Yanbai looked at Fu Qingyi, his heart surging with wild joy. He had finally found her, and she was alive. Yet, the look she gave him was so icy, as if they had never loved at all. He picked up the document on the desk, but couldn't focus on a single word. His voice was pleading. "Qingyi, you're really alive. Thank God, you've finally come back. I'm sorry, I was wrong before. I shouldn't have believed Su Zhuyun. I shouldn't have hurt you. Let's start over, please, Mr. Shen." Fu Qingyi said sternly. "We are here today to discuss the merger, not to listen to your confession. If you're not interested in talking, We can leave immediately and release all the evidence, bankrupting the Shin Group for good. The choice is yours. Shin Yenbai took a deep breath, suppressing the turmoil in his heart. He picked up the document on the table, signed his name directly, and handed it to Fu Qingyi's assistant. Qingyi, I'll do anything you ask, just come back. Fu Qingyi gathered the documents and stood up to leave. The terms on the negotiating table were settled. This was the most basic price Shin Yenbai could pay. For his mistake, Gu Ziyan followed closely behind, naturally taking the folder from Fu Qingyi's hand. His fingers brushed against the back of her hand by accident, and he quickly withdrew them. As soon as they stepped into the lobby, they saw Gu Xingwan leaning against a black sedan, waving at them. Over here. Fu Qingyi paused her steps, watching Gu Xingwan run over, a rare, gentle smile gracing her lips. Lately, Gu Xingwan had been sticking to her like a little sunbeam. How did the negotiations go? Gu Xingwan sidled up to Fu Qingyi and asked curiously. Shin Yenbai hurried out after her, his eyes filled with urgency. I'm fine, Fu Qingyi replied. Just as she was about to get into the car, her wrist was suddenly grabbed. It was Shin Yenbai. He pleaded, Qingyi, don't go, let's talk again, please. I know I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. Give me one more chance. I promise I'll change. Let go. Fu Qingyi struggled with all her might, her eyes turning icy cold in an instant. Seeing this, Gu Xingwan immediately stepped in front of Fu Qingyi, glaring at Shin Yenbai. What are you doing? Sister Qingyi already said she doesn't want to see you. Why are you still pestering her? Someone like you, who can't tell right from wrong and hurts his own wife, is completely unworthy of Sister Qingyi. My brother is 100 times better than you. At least he knows how to cherish someone and would never let Sister Qingyi suffer the slightest grievance. As soon as these words were spoken, not only was Shin Yenbai stunned, but even Gu Ziyan was slightly taken aback. The tips of his ears turned faintly red, and his gaze shifted somewhat awkwardly to the side. Fu Qingyi also noticed Gu Ziyan's unusual behavior, and her heart gave an inexplicable flutter. Gu Xingwan's words, Xing is right. Fu Qingyi withdrew her gaze, turning it towards Shin Yenbai, who was still gripping her wrist, her tone icy. Shin Yenbai, don't you get it? I have absolutely no interest in hearing your confessions, and even less interest in seeing you in this pathetic state. As she spoke, she abruptly raised her hand. Smack. Shin Yenbai's head snapped to the side from the blow. He stared at Fu Qingyi in disbelief, his eyes filled with anguish. Qingyi, the day you let Su Zhiyun move into our home was the day I decided to leave you. The moment you tried to put me on that operating table as a breeding tool for her sake. It was over between us. No, it's not what you think, Qingyi. I was drugged. Shin Yenbai hurriedly defended himself. I went to a business dinner that day, and someone spiked my drink. When I woke up, Su Zhiyun was lying next to me. I didn't mean to cheat on you. I just mistakenly believed her story. I thought she had really been bullied by you. Another sharp slap landed, even harder than the last. A trickle of blood instantly seeped from the corner of Shin Yenbai's mouth. Fu Qingyi looked at him with a mocking gaze. You'd rather believe a woman you barely know? Believe her fabricated lies about bullying, then spare a single minute to ask me, Shin Yenbai, do you have any idea? You make me feel like all those years we spent together were a complete joke. This ends here. From now on, don't show your face in front of me ever again, and don't even think about trying to contact me. With that, she forcefully shook off Shin Yenbai's hand. Gu Ziyan immediately stepped forward and opened the car door for her. Gu Xingwan stuck her tongue out at Shin Yenbai. Before hurrying to catch up, the car door closed, cutting off Shin Yenbai's line of sight. Those two slaps seemed to have slapped away the last shred of her nostalgia for the past, along with her resentment. Gu Ziyan glanced at Fu Qingyi, whose eyes were closed. After a moment's hesitation, he took a bottle of cold water from the car fridge and offered it to her. Here, have some water, it'll help you calm down. Fu Qingyi opened her eyes, took the water bottle, and her fingertips brushed against his. Pausing for a fleeting moment, she looked up at Gu Ziyan and noticed the faint blush at the tips of his ears hadn't fully faded. Thank you, Mr. Gu, Fu Qingyi said softly. Gu Ziyan's hand tightened on the steering wheel, his voice low. Don't mention it. We're friends. 16. He was about to say business partner, but at the last moment, he changed it to friend. That choice of words introduced a subtle shift in the atmosphere inside the car. Sitting in the back seat, Gu Xingwan watched their exchange and smiled to herself. Shin Yenbai remained rooted to the spot, face buried in his hands. As tears finally began to fall late at night, the lights were still on in the top floor office of the Gu Group headquarters, neon signs flickering outside the window. On the computer screen before her, the resumes of the Fu family's former associates and the integration plans for various Gu Group departments were densely listed. Ever since she brought the Fu family's core team into the Gu family as shareholders, she had practically moved into the office, working around the clock. Her only goal was to see the Fu name restored to its rightful place on the business map as soon as possible. Qingyi, you pulled 3 all-nighters in a row. If you keep this up, you're going to run yourself into the ground. Gu Xingwan looked at the dark circles under Fu Qingyi's eyes, her heart aching as she frowned. If my brother finds out how hard you're pushing yourself, he'll definitely scold me again. For not looking after you properly. It's fine, I just need to finish reviewing this handover document. The Fu family is following my lead, I can't let them down. Gu Xingwan sat down beside her, looked at the familiar names of the Fu family's old associates on the screen, and sighed. I know you want to restore the Fu family's standing, but there's no need to rush so much. Don't worry, my brother said the Gu family's resources are yours to use, he'll help you. At the mention of Gu Ziyan, Fu Qingyi's movements paused during. This time, Gu Ziyan's assistants had indeed been everywhere. He had even gone so far as to have the coffee machine in her office replaced with the specific brand she preferred. I know, Fu Qingyi said softly, her gaze returning to the screen, but I don't want to rely on the Gu family forever. The Fu family's standing must be earned back by ourselves, for in the morning the office door was pushed open gently. Gu Ziyan stood at the doorway, holding a black insulated bag. A pang of heartache flashed in his eyes when he saw Fu Qingyi. Xing said you were still at the office, so I came to check on you. Fu Qingyi was a little surprised. It's so late, why aren't you asleep yet? Just finished a video conference with the overseas team, I brought you something on the way. Gu Ziyan walked up to her and took a bottle of whiskey and 2 crystal glasses from an insulated bag. I know you like this, I added ice, so it won't be too strong. Fu Qingyi took the glass. She remembered she had only mentioned liking this brand of whiskey once, at a casual cocktail party. She hadn't expected him to remember. Thank you, she raised her glass, gently clinking it against Gu Ziyan's. I've been a lot of trouble for you lately. If it weren't for you, I probably wouldn't have even secured the Shin Group's European branch. Gu Ziyan's tone was earnest. You don't need to thank me. Back in school, you were the one who saved Xing when Su Jian cornered her in that alley. You even helped her retrieve her smashed drawing board. I told myself then that I would repay you one day. Later, when Shin Yanbai got entangled with Su Zhiyun, it was because she was using him to get back at you for what happened back then. When it comes down to it, it was our Gu family that dragged you into this. Fu Qingyi's hand, holding the glass, paused. She hadn't expected that a small, casual favor she'd done all those years ago could have led to so much. She looked at Gu Ziyan's handsome features. Under the soft light, there wasn't a trace of insincerity in his eyes. So, you helped me. Because of the stars, she asked softly, her tone laced with an unconscious probing she herself hadn't detected. Gu Ziyan's movements froze for a moment, his gaze flickering as if he hadn't expected her to ask that. He was silent for a few seconds, then set down his glass, leaning forward slightly, his eyes locked intently on Fu Qingyi's. His tone grew more earnest than before. At first, it was because of the stars, but later, Fu Qingyi's heart skipped a beat. Instinctively, she averted her gaze from Gu Ziyan's. Shin Yanbai was the only one who had ever made her heart flutter like this. Shin Yanbai's affection was passionate and intense. Gu Ziyan's affection, in contrast, was gentle and mild. Silence fell over the office, broken only by the sound of their breathing. She was well aware of Gu Ziyan's feelings for her, but for now, with the weight of the Fu family on her shoulders, she needed to become strong enough first before she could honestly confront her own heart. Gu Ziyan seemed to see right through her. He didn't press the topic further. Instead, he picked up the handover form on her desk and said softly, let me look over this for you. Lean back and rest for a bit. I'll drive you home later. Fu Qingyi did not refuse. Before I knew it, I had fallen asleep. Gu Ziyan gazed at her sleeping profile, his eyes soft. He gently picked up a coat and draped it over her, his movements careful so as not to disturb her. 17. The business summit concluded as dusk deepened. Fu Qingyi had just seen off the last partner when she turned around and was blocked by 2 men in black suits. They moved swiftly, covering her mouth and nose, and forcibly dragged her into a black sedan. Before her consciousness faded, she saw Shin Yanbai, his eyes filled with obsession. When she came to again, Fu Qingyi found herself tied up in a stateroom aboard a luxury cruise ship. Outside the window, the sea was pitch black, and the vessel was heading into the deep ocean. Qingyi, you're awake. Shin Yanbai pushed the door open and walked in, a glass of red wine in his hand, his tone gentle. I know you're still upset, so I prepared a special gift for you. I hope you can forgive me. Fu Qingyi stared at him coldly, saying nothing. His relentless pursuit of her had never ceased during this time. He found out her address and lingered there every day. When she went to work, he would block her in the parking lot. She thought he still had a shred of sanity left, but she never expected him to resort to something as extreme as kidnapping. Seeing her remain silent, Shin Yanbai wasn't angry. He simply clapped his hands. Soon, two crewmen dragged in a disheveled and wretched Su Zhuyun. Unhealed scars still marred her face, a clear sign she hadn't been faring well. The crewmen forced Su Zhuyun to the ground, the pain contorting her face into a grimace. Shen Yanbai walked up to her, his voice icy. Su Zhuyun, you deceived me back then and caused Qingyi so much suffering. Now, get on your knees and apologize to Qingyi. If you fail to earn her forgiveness today, I'll have you tied to the back of this yacht and dragged through the water all the way to shore. Whether you survive will be up to your luck. Su Zhuyun trembled from head to toe. She looked at Fu Qingyi, her eyes brimming with desperate pleading, and kowtowed with loud, heavy thuds. Sister Qingyi, I was wrong. I was truly wrong. Back in school, I saw how well off your family was, how your parents doted on you, and how Shen Yanbai adored you. I was consumed by jealousy. That's why I deliberately fabricated the lie that you bullied me. Later, I deceived Shen Yanbai into hurting you. I shouldn't have done any of that. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Please, have mercy on me. Her forehead was red and raw from the kowtowing, with faint traces of blood beginning to seep through. Fu Qingyi watched with a cold, detached gaze. Seeing Fu Qingyi's lack of reaction, Shen Yanbai's expression darkened. He shot a meaningful glance at a crew member. It seems Miss Su still hasn't grasped the gravity of her mistakes. Tie her up and throw her to the stern of the yacht. No, stop. Su Zhuyun struggled frantically, but the crew members still managed to tie her up securely. Just as the crew was about to drag her out of the guest room, Fu Qingyi finally spoke, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Shen Yanbai, you never cease to amaze me. Shen Yanbai froze, thinking she was about to forgive Su Zhuyun. A flicker of hope instantly ignited in his eyes. Qingyi, are you willing to forgive me? Forgive you? Fu Qingyi sneered. Shen Yanbai, you're not doing this for me, you're doing it to ease your own conscience, she continued, her voice trembling. Back then, for Su Zhuyun's sake, you forced me onto the operating table. For her, you threatened to harm the old guards of the Fu family. For her, you watched me get pushed into the sea and chose to save her first, and now, you're treating Su Zhuyun with this same cruelty. Every single day, I regret ever falling for someone like you. I once thought you were the light of my life. Now I see you for what you truly are, the one who dragged me into an even deeper abyss. Shen Yanbai, whatever was between us ended long ago. Everything you're doing now only fills me with disgust. No, Qingyi, please, let me explain. Shen Yanbai tried to step forward, but Fu Qingyi stopped him sharply. Don't come any closer, Shen Yanbai. If you have even a shred of conscience left, you'll let me go right now. Otherwise, Gu Ziyan will find this place soon. He knows I came for the summit. If he discovers I'm missing, he'll mobilize every resource to find me. By then, you won't be able to save yourself, and you'll drag the entire Shen group down with you. At that very moment, the yacht's intercom crackled to life. A panicked crew member's voice came through. Mr. Shen, it's bad. Our ship is surrounded by several speedboats. They say they're from the Gu group and are demanding Ms. Fu's immediate release. Shen Yanbai's face paled instantly. He looked at Fu Qingyi, then out the window at the speedboats closing in, a wave of utter despair washing over him. Fu Qingyi breathed a sigh of relief. She knew Gu Ziyan would find her. Soon after, Gu Ziyan burst in with a group of bodyguards. His gaze turned icy the moment he saw Fu Qingyi tied to the chair. He rushed forward to untie the ropes from her wrists, his voice filled with concern. Qingyi, are you all right? Are you hurt anywhere? Fu Qingyi shook her head and leaned into Gu Ziyan's embrace. Gu Ziyan cast a cold glance at Su Zhuyun, who was slumped on the floor, and said to the bodyguard behind him, how to deal with Su Zhuyun will be left to the law to decide. 18. Fu Qingyi was finalizing the last acquisition case. Securing this portion of equity would allow the Fu family to reclaim everything they had lost all those years ago. Miss, the Shen Group just issued an announcement, Uncle Zhou said as he walked in with a document, his tone full of surprise. Shen Yanbai, he has transferred all 35% of his Shen Group shares that he holds to you, completely free of charge. Fu Qingyi's eyes widened in shock. 35% of the shares, virtually all of Shen Yanbai's influence within the Shen Group, and he had just transferred them to her. Just like that, before she could even process this news, the office door was gently pushed open. Old Master Shen shuffled in, leaning heavily on his cane, his hair even whiter than the last time she had seen him. Qingyi, the old man approached her, his voice hoarse. I'm begging you, could you please have a proper talk with Yanbai? That boy has locked himself in his room, refusing to eat or drink. He's wasting away. Grandpa knows Yanbai wronged you, but he realizes his mistake now. Could you just give him one more chance, please? Fu Qingyi looked at the old man's aged appearance, a tumult of emotions swirling in her heart. Back when the Fu family went bankrupt and her father was lying in the ICU, it was the old man who secretly slipped her a sum of money so she could pay for her father's medical bills first. Later, When she married Shin Yanbai, the old man never treated her poorly. She has always been grateful. Grandfather, Fu Qingyi stood up, helping the old man settle onto the sofa, her tone calm. I will not touch the headquarters of the Shin Group. This is my promise to you, and my thanks. For the help you gave the Fu family all those years ago. The old man's eyes instantly lit up, but just as he was about to speak, Fu Qingyi cut him off. However, regarding the matter of Shin Yanbai threatening to harm the old retainers of the Fu family for Su Zhiyun's sake, I must seek justice. Those people fought alongside my father their entire lives. They saw the Fu family as their own home. They should never have been subjected to such threats and harm because of Shin Yanbai's selfishness. The old man sighed, tears streaming down his aged face. Yes, Yanbai wronged your Fu family. He wronged those old employees. I know, grandfather knows. You've been carrying this grievance in your heart, but you and Yanbai are husband and wife. After all, watching the old man's tears, Fu Qingyi felt a pang of heartache, yet she shook her head. Grandpa, things between Shin Yanbai and me, they've been over for a long time. What he's doing now is far too late. The old man said nothing more and turned to leave. As she watched his lonely figure retreat, a wave of complex emotions washed over Fu Qingyi's heart, but it was quickly replaced by resolve. She couldn't let a moment of soft-heartedness make her forget the grievances of the Fu family's old retainers. Meanwhile, downstairs from the office building, a steady stream of people came and went. Shin Yanbai knelt on the ground, slapping his own face over and over again. Standing before him was Fu Qingyi's former makeup artist, Shin Yanbai's cheeks quickly swelled and reddened, yet he continued to slap himself relentlessly. He counted silently in his heart. 1, 2, 3, 999. He intended to deliver a full 999 slaps, to atone for the wrong Su Zhiyun had committed back then and to make amends for his own past indulgence. After the final slap landed, Shin Yanbai could no longer hold on and collapsed to the ground. It wasn't until the makeup artist pleaded through tears for him to stop. He then had himself tied to the stern of the yacht and dragged through the sea. Only when he was completely exhausted and sank into the water, his consciousness fading, was he finally rescued by the crew. When Shin Yanbai arrived at the hospital, his lung infection was so severe that he was immediately admitted to the ICU. The doctor said his lungs were critically damaged, and any further delay could have been life-threatening. Yet, the moment he was discharged from the ICU, he ignored the doctor's protests and, dragging his weakened body, knelt outside Fu Qingyi's apartment building. Those days happened to be cold, with rain falling steadily. Shin Yanbai knelt in the cold rain, his fever unbroken, his face deathly pale. Every day, he stood below her window, calling out Fu Qingyi's name with a hoarse voice, pleading, Qingyi, I know I was wrong. Please, just forgive me this once. I'll spend my whole life making it up to you. I'll do anything. Fu Qingyi stood by the window, watching Shin Yanbai kneeling in the rain below. She knew he was atoning, knew he was suffering now, but that suffering was nothing compared to the pain he had inflicted on her all those years ago. Gu Ziyan gently took her hand. Don't look anymore. Fu Qingyi's birthday celebration was held at an open-air estate, the evening breeze carrying the sweet scent of cake. Gu Xingwan approached, holding the cake. Qingyi, make a wish. Fu Qingyi smiled and closed her eyes. She recalled the whiskey in the late-night London office, his frantic urgency when he burst through the door during the cruise ship crisis, and the seamless of countless times they had worked side by side. The last trace of hesitation in her heart vanished without a trace the moment the candle flames went out. Applause echoed through the estate. Gu Xingwan immediately leaned in and pressed, Qingyi, what did you wish for? Tell me, tell me. Fu Qingyi turned to look at Gu Ziyan beside her. He was gazing at her tenderly, the smile in his eyes like starlight. She took a deep breath. My wish is that the confession I'm about to make doesn't fail. As her words fell, the manor instantly fell silent. Gu Xingwan covered her mouth, her eyes wide as saucers. The friends all held their breath, their gazes shifting between the two. Gu Ziyan was utterly stunned, looking into Fu Qingyi's smiling eyes. His heart pounded wildly. 19. He had waited for these words for far too long, so long that he had almost resigned himself to forever standing in the friend zone, silently watching over her. Gu Ziyan, for this period of time, would you be with me? I will. Gu Ziyan answered almost instantly. He stepped forward, reached out, and pulled Fu Qingyi tightly into his embrace, his arms holding her close. Qingyi, I've waited far too long to hear you say that. I've loved you ever since the day you saved Xingxing. Cheers erupted across the manor grounds. Gu Xingwan jumped up and down, shouting, I knew it. I just knew my brother and sister Qingyi would end up together. The Fu family's elderly steward's eyes grew moist. He murmured with emotion, the young miss has finally found someone she can entrust her heart to. Outside the manor's wrought iron gates, Shin Yanbai watched the heartwarming scene unfold within Fu Qingyi's confession. Gu Ziyan's response, and the friend's congratulations were all slowly tearing him apart. He charged in like a madman, only to be stopped by the bodyguards at the door, watching Fuqingyi smile as she leaned into Gu Ziyan's embrace. He felt an overwhelming sense of irony. He had desperately tried to atone, slapping himself, nearly drowning in the sea, kneeling outside until he burned with fever, yet in the end, she had fallen for someone else. Why does Gu Ziyan get to have her love? Why must I just watch their happiness like a clown? Jealousy coiled around his heart, nearly suffocating him. He whirled around and charged toward the car parked by the roadside, his eyes blazing with a frenzied, murderous intent. If he couldn't have Fuqingyi, then Gu Ziyan wouldn't either. By the time the birthday banquet ended, the night was deep. Gu Ziyan held Fuqingyi's hand as they walked slowly toward the parking lot, speaking in low voices, with the occasional sound of her laughter drifting through the air. Gu Xingwan and her friends trailed behind, chattering noisily about where to meet up next time. Just then, a blinding headlight suddenly shone from the side and rear, accompanied by the screech of brakes and a roaring engine. Look out, Gu Ziyan reacted instantly. A violent crash sounded as Gu Ziyan's arm was grazed by the car's side mirror, blood instantly welling up. Shen Yanbai's car crashed into a tree by the roadside, the front end crumpled, and the airbags deployed. He struggled to push the car door open, his face smeared with blood, his eyes wild as he stared at Fuqingyi. Qingyi, why him? You promised you'd love me forever. Why did you betray me? Fuqingyi looked at the unhinged Shen Yanbai before her. Shen Yanbai, you were the one who betrayed me first. You're the one who destroyed what we had. This madness of yours isn't because you love me, it's because you can't stand losing. It's because you can't accept your own failure. That's not true. I do love you. I just loved you too much. Fuqingyi's gaze fell on Gu Ziyan's bleeding arm. That wound seared her heart the moment Shen Yanbai drove his car towards them. Gu Ziyan had shielded her with his own body. All the hatred that had been festering inside her erupted completely at that moment. She whipped her head around and saw her friend's car parked not far away. In the trunk was the custom-made golf club she had just been gifted today. Knowing she'd recently taken up golf, her friend had deliberately chosen a weighted club. It felt heavy and substantial in her hand. Shen Yanbai. Fuqingyi pulled the golf club from the trunk and immediately charged toward Shen Yanbai, who was still struggling on the ground. 20 before he could even react, the club whistled through the air and smashed hard into his shoulder. A dull thud was followed by Shen Yanbai's agonized scream as his shoulder instantly went numb. You think going crazy gets you off the hook? Fuqingyi swung the bat again, this time smashing it into his leg. You've hurt me over and over, and now you want to hurt him too. Shen Yanbai, who the hell do you think you are? Gu Ziyan moved to stop her, but a single glare from Fuqingyi froze him in his tracks. Don't you dare. Today, I'm going to make him understand exactly what it costs to hurt us. Fuqingyi pointed the bat at his face, her voice icy. Shen Yanbai, if you've got the guts, sue me. Fuqingyi, will see you in court, but mark my words, starting today, apart from your grandfather's company, your entire Shen family is finished. With that, she stood up and said to her friend, call the police. Tell them he assaulted me with intent to kill. Her friend immediately took out her phone and dialed 911. Soon, the wail of sirens pierced the air, and Shen Yanbai was taken away by the police for questioning. Watching him disappear into the night, Fuqingyi's tense body finally relaxed a fraction. She turned to Gu Ziyan, her eyes instantly welling up. How's your hand? Does it hurt? Gu Ziyan held her hand, shaking his head with a smile. It doesn't hurt. As long as you're okay, that's all that matters. He knew that the beating he just took was Fuqingyi's way of completely severing ties with the past. Early the next morning, Fuqingyi called an emergency meeting to formally launch a full-scale takeover bid for the Shen Group. Armed with the 35% stake transferred from Shen Yanbai, she allied with several companies previously suppressed by the Shen Group. Combined with the evidence of accounting fraud and fund embezzlement that Uncle Zhou had prepared, her first move was a precise and devastating blow. First, negative news about Shen Group was released in the stock market, causing its share price to hit the daily limit down for 3 consecutive days. Next, they acquired Shen Group's non-core subsidiaries, cutting off its cash flow. Finally, they launched a direct assault on Shen Group's core business, acquiring a large number of shares from small and medium-sized shareholders at prices above the market rate. In an instant, panic spread within Shen Group, with senior executives resigning one after another and partners terminating their contracts in succession. Apart from the headquarters company founded by Grandpa Shen himself, almost all enterprises under the Shen Group have collapsed. Just as Fuqingyi said, it's completely over. Leaning on his cane, Grandpa Shen stood in front of the Shen Group building, watching the stock prices plummet on the screen and sighed wearily. It's all Yanbai's doing. The old man sighed, his voice hoarse. I warned him back then not to get too close to Su Zhiyun and not to break Qingyi's heart, but he wouldn't listen. He brought this upon himself. The assistant asked cautiously, "Sir, what should we do now? Should we contact Miss Fu to discuss cooperation?" The old man shook his head. "No need. Qingyi is a loyal and righteous girl. She promised me she wouldn't touch the headquarters, and she'll keep her word. As for the rest of the Shin family's businesses, let them go. This is what Yanbai owes her." Meanwhile, Fu Qingyi was in a conference room at a Shin Group subsidiary, holding a meeting with the staff. Looking at the nervous employees before her, she spoke in a gentle tone. "Everyone, rest assured, my acquisition of this company is not for layoffs, but to help it grow stronger. All employee salaries and benefits will remain unchanged, and may even increase based on performance. As long as you work hard, the Fu Group will not treat you poorly." Hearing this, the employees instantly relaxed and broke into applause. After the meeting, Fu Qingyi ran into Shin Yanbai in the hallway, who had just been released on bail. He was dressed in a hospital gown, his face pale, with casts on his shoulder and leg, a pitiful sight. "Qingyi," Shin Yanbai called out to her, his voice hoarse, "will you never forgive me?" Fu Qingyi stopped but didn't turn around, replying flatly, "No, I wouldn't forgive you even if you died." That sentence severed Shin Yanbai's last shred of hope. He stood frozen in place, watching Fu Qingyi's retreating figure, and suddenly began to laugh, a laugh so bitter that tears streamed down his face. After that day, no one ever saw Shin Yanbai again. Some say they saw him piloting a yacht out to sea, heading toward international waters. A month later, Gu Ziyan's injuries had completely healed. He chose the garden of the Fu family's ancestral home to propose to Fu Qingyi. The sunlight was perfect that day, and the roses in the garden were in full, vibrant bloom. "Qingyi," Gu Ziyan's voice was tender, his eyes filled with love. "In the past, I failed to protect you, letting you suffer so much. In the future, I want to stay by your side always. Will you marry me?" Fu Qingyi looked at him, tears welling up uncontrollably, and nodded. "I do." Gu Ziyan stood up, placed the ring on her finger, and then held her in a tight embrace. Later, Fu Qingyi not only restored the Fu family's standing but also developed the Shin Group subsidiary into a greater success, becoming a legend in the business world. She and Gu Ziyan held a simple wedding ceremony. Occasionally, Fu Qingyi would think of Grandpa Shen and go to visit him, keeping him company over tea and catching up on recent events. Grandpa Shen said she felt more like his own child than Yanbai did. Afraid of hurting Fu Qingyi, they had an unspoken agreement to never mention Shin Yanbai, a topic that would upset her. They both knew it, too. What became of Shin Yanbai? Yet no one ever spoke of him again. Like a bad dream, he vanished completely from everyone's lives. The end.